Have a quorum. So I call the committee back out of lunch recess. And Ms. Rounds, are you ready to roll?
So I think Matt is in the audience to cover 37. So if you want to do that first, and then I can roll with my footnotes because I'm not sure what his availability is.
All right, that sounds good to me. Hey, Matt, welcome
Hello,
back.
Mr. Chairman. Good to be back.
Can we can we get section 37 pulled up, Mr. Ripple? So we were sharing that. How you doing today?
Very good. How are you, Mr. Chairman?
Super. Great day. Living the life of the Shire.
It's a great day when Ways and Means raise the revenues. So,
are you here to give us the? Oh, you can't give us the Ways and Means update.
I would defer to them on that. That hopefully you have good news soon. I am happy to talk to section 37 though.
Let's do that. So, all right. You can begin if you'd like.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So section 37 is a fairly straightforward one-time appropriation of $1.5 million directed towards combating social isolation and making capital improvements in spaces such as senior centers. Part of the inspiration behind this appropriation in House Bill 2 is that we know the pandemic has hit older Granite Staters harder than anyone else. And as part of coming out of COVID and encouraging people to get back out into their routines and socialize, we know that some of these types of structures across the state could use money of this nature to make capital upgrades or just other things, whether it be programming or to make seniors feel safe returning to these spaces. And that's the inspiration behind this. And I'm happy to take any questions, but I don't have too much more than that.
Okay, I do have some questions. Eligibility, is this only for county nursing homes? Is it for all? I understand we have something like 240 or 260 nursing homes statewide. Is everyone eligible? What's the eligibility around this?
So we would support broad eligibility. This would be something that DHHS would need to determine as the legislation is silent on it. But essentially, this would be an opportunity to provide grants or potentially matching grants to these entities. And again, for the purpose that I've already gone through, whatever they might need to encourage people to socialize and try to mitigate those negative mental health impacts that we know the pandemic has wrought.
Representative Woolner has her hand up.
Thank you, and thank you for being here again. I was wondering, what would be the process? Health and Human Services would put out some sort of an RFP or information so that senior centers could apply. I mean, these aren't just nursing homes, right? These could be senior centers in local communities, meal sites where seniors gather.
Absolutely, yes. Anything of that nature. I don't believe nursing homes are specifically called out. I think it is more of that community aspect. And if the committee feels that we need to add the word competitive process or something along that nature, just to ensure, there's some structure to what HHS would ultimately deploy, we don't have any concerns there. But again, I think the department would have that broad discretion on how to operationalize this funding.
Kind of
Yes, you have a
follow-up?
follow-up.
Yes. So you see this going to many senior centers across the state, not just to one or two that have already been chosen.
Correct. There's no predetermination on where these funds would go or even the size of the grants. We see this as a problem statewide, and we know it's a small investment, but we did want to make some type of an investment through the budget again, just to come out of this pandemic and make sure that people feel comfortable in the spaces that they regularly enjoyed prior to the pandemic.
You still have the floor if you have other questions.
Well, I guess the only other question I really have is, this is another new requirement for Health and Human Services. And I wondered where exactly this might happen in Health and Human Services, and whether or not they've really got the bandwidth to do this program at this point. I mean, I think you're right. It's certainly infrastructure is a problem for a lot of these organizations. So I wonder if you've explored that, though, whether Health and Human Services really has the ability to do this right now.
I would defer to Karen as to that. I don't know that we'd be opposed to the department having some portion of this for administrative expenses if necessary. But again, it is such a small pot of money to start with. But again, I would defer to Karen on that particular point.
Okay,
So
thank you.
oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off. You were done?
No, I just said thank you for the information.
All right. If you have more, you can continue. Do you have more?
No,
Okay, so what is the maximum number that would qualify under this paragraph as written? Are we, since we're talking about all of the nursing homes in the state, plus other things that may qualify as senior centers, are we talking about 500 to 1,000 possible bidders?
Potentially, I don't have a firm number, but if you assumed that there was one entity in each town, right, probably 250 is a safe assumption. And obviously, there's a lot of fluctuation there. But again, the department would have broad discretion on how to operationalize this program if they wanted to do a minimum or a maximum threshold. And again, if the committee feels that additional details are necessary to help set that down a certain track, we don't have any concerns about anything like that.
Well, I'm just concerned, thank you, because I'm just thinking that if this gets to, well, one, we have to make sure that it's fair. And with $1.5 million, that money is going to run out pretty quickly if there are 250 potential bidders. And then we'll be spending money on screening and qualifying and approving grants. And it just seems to me that we could end up consuming a significant chunk of this money on administrative costs and not getting the money out to help the centers. Wouldn't a more efficient program just be to write a $1,000 check to everything that can qualify as a senior center and be done with it?
If there's an administratively efficient way to deploy this funding, again, I think that would definitely be our preference. But the language as written in the bill doesn't specify one process or another, but we agree that it should be fair and open to any entity that qualifies. And we haven't tried to prescribe those smaller details through the legislation.
And I think you would agree we want to minimize administrative costs because we'd rather money get spent actually doing things.
Absolutely.
Representative Wallner?
Matt, I just wanted to know, I guess I should probably know this myself, but I don't. So this past summer, we've been, Gopher set up a number of different funds. One of them was a nonprofit fund. I would assume that most of these senior centers are nonprofits. Do we know if senior centers took advantage of that fund? It sounds like sort of what's happening here are things that might have been eligible under the Gopher funding, the nonprofit Gopher funding. And I just wondered if you had any statistics about that.
Nothing offhand. What I would say is I would agree most of these entities are either nonprofits or municipally owned. And these uses that we've delineated here would certainly be eligible for CARES Act funding and potentially subsequent federal money that's coming to the state. So you are right that there are potentially other pots of money that could accomplish the same purpose. But again, wanted to do something just showing the state's commitment to, again, helping seniors get back out and into their communities.
So I
Thank you.
think it's a great objective. I mean, particularly since we're dealing with an age that's particularly vulnerable to the worst aspects of the disease. But again, I'm just looking for a way to make sure that there's fairness and transparency and that we're not spending money on overhead to too large an extent. So, and you're mentioning that we've had federal money and that we are having new federal money. So could you categorically today tell us a definition of senior citizen centers that just would not qualify for any federal money? Those that are kind of targets of only us can help them?
I don't know that I have anything that would fit into that category that wouldn't be eligible, given that these would be COVID-related expenses, which has been, one of those key criteria in deploying federal funds. And again, I think that, federal funds can go a long way. We wanted to do something that shows, again, the state's own commitment in HB2, which is why we put this modest sum of money there. So if the recommendation of the committee is that Gopher should run a program or anything like that, there are potentially other pots of money, but just the rationale for why we saw this in HB2.
Do you see modifying the language in a way in which we say that this 1.5 million is to be funded by federal monies?
You could write that in, but I don't know if that's the best way to, because it would be such a small portion of what the state would be receiving. It might just be better to allow that to happen on its own, as opposed to trying to prescribe such a small portion of that money that's coming into the state in such a way.
Representative Nordgren, you have your hand up, but I'm going to go to Ms. Rounds first, just in case she has a clarifying comment, and then we'll go to you. Ms.
So
Rounds?
as far as administratively, there really is no way to avoid administrative work. We cannot write a check unless there is a contract and if it's a contract for more, or a grant award, if it's more than $10,000, it must go through the governor and council process. So there is no way for the department to avoid administrative costs with administering this program.
Thank you for that. Representative Nordgren, do you have a question?
No, I just want to make a comment. That House Bill 2 was written months ago, before we obviously probably knew of the extent of the availability of the Gopher money. So that might be some part of our consideration, that things have changed since this bill was written. So I think we should consider the other options if we can. Thank you.
So what would another option be, just to draw you out a little bit further?
Well, I think we need to see if this sort of operation that's in 36 would be covered by COVID before we decide what we're doing with it.
Based on the
You said
plain
36, I
language
think you meant 37 though, right?
Right, yes, I do. I'm reading without my bifocals, I'm sorry.
No problem. I'm sorry I cut you off, man. I just wanted to make sure we were all talking the same thing.
Okay,
No, and I appreciate that, Mr. Chairman. I would say, based on the plain language of the American Rescue Plan that was recently enacted, anything that we would have envisioned through this appropriation would be covered by those dollars. Again, I can't point to a unique loophole that we were trying to solve, other than, again, just to reiterate the state's commitment to helping these types of centers that normally don't always have the money readily available to make these types of upgrades.
Okay, Ms. Rounds, your hand is up, and so is Representative Nordgren. So we'll go to Representative Nordgren again.
no, never mind, sorry.
All right. Are there any other comments from the committee? The way I'm looking at this is I think that it's an important thing, but I'm just concerned that it would be a little ineffectual and that we would eat up too many of these resources, not only state resources and HHS, but there would have to be senior centers all over the state that would have to fill out some kind of form. So they would be incurring expenses too. I guess I just don't see this. I see the intent and the good naturedness and the importance of it, but I'm just not. This doesn't strike me as effectual. And so if just spitballing with you, Mr. Malou, if our committee were to strike 37, would you work with the Senate to kind of tighten up the eligibility and tighten up, what the process would be to determine who would get it, so that they can consider, because we can't, we don't have time, so that they could consider whether or not this was, a cost-effective and program that delivered what we want.
Mr. Chairman, we would either do that or work to develop a similar program, either through Gopher or with federal money. So I think one way or another, the spirit and the intent of this section, we certainly would want to move forward with, but whether it's working with the Senate or just using federal money to fund some of these similar type initiatives, I think to Representative Wallner's point, there would be other pathways.
And I certainly don't speak for the committee. I was just trying to understand the governor's office reaction if we went down that road. So thank you for that. Representative Nordgren, I couldn't tell if you wanted to speak again or not. You're welcome.
Well, if there's a time for making a motion, I would do that.
Okay, so I'm going to try to act like I've learned something over the last few days. And if your motion requires an amendment, we're not ready to take a formal amendment. But can you tell me a little bit what you think you're going to motion?
No, I was just going to make a motion to remove this. And I think
Right.
the theory that the Senate will have more information about Gopher money and they could put it back in if necessary.
Yes, ma'am. I would love to entertain that motion, but I don't think we can because we don't have an amendment that strikes this language from HB2.
You actually could. Sorry to interrupt. I went ahead and had one drafted just in case you decided to go down that road. So you actually do have one to vote on this time.
You ever watch the TV show MASH? I'm now going to call you Radar Ripple.
He's a mind reader.
I know.
I'll second the motion.
Yes.
That's amazing. So Representative Nordgren, if you'd like to make a motion, maybe you could reference the amendment that Mr. Ripple has prepared for us.
Here he is.
Oh, and it's got my name on it, even better.
So do you want me to move it on your behalf?
Please.
Okay. I would like to make a motion to accept the amendment 0905H, please.
Second.
There's a second? Yes, there's a second. So Representative Bean, I assume that Representative Weiler's not here yet. Are you ready to take a roll?
Just a second. You're aware that says paragraph 19, correct?
The paragraph 19 refers to the paragraph in the analysis at the beginning of the bill, so it would actually delete section 37.
Okay, just a second.
Good catch, good question, Harry.
I'm trying to find my paperwork here. The bad
So-
case of way too much paperwork.
So Ms. Rounds, you're on deck because we're going to come back to you, when we're through the vote.
Yes, I will be ready.
Okay, you ready?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Representative Wallner,
Yes.
Representative Nordgren,
Yes.
Representative Rogers,
Yes.
Representative Earth,
Yes.
Representative Edwards.
Yes,
I'm Representative Bean, and I'm a yes. Is Representative Weiler out there? Sounds like he's not. It's 6-0 with one absent.
thank you, Representative Bean. So the 6-0, the motion passes, and we will delete section 37. So Ms. Rounds, and the things that you still want to talk about, do you still need Mr. Malou? And Matt, you're going to have to like teach me phonetically how to say your name. I'm so sorry. It's an embarrassment every single time. So Ms. Rounds, you ready?
I am. All right. So I say I'm ready, and then I don't have my crap together to actually share my screen. Okay, here we go. So last night, Mr. Chair, you sent me an email that then was later revised. So this is just the revised list of footnotes that you had questions about. I assume that's what you wanted to chat about.
Yes, those 6, and then Representative Earth caused
Yep.
the question, is there a typo?
Great. So we will start with the first one, 2958. So there was not a footnote for 2958 in 1819. However, there was one in 2021 to make that non-lapsing within the biennium. And the reason that we did that was actually a couple of reasons. One, almost all of our, or might be all of our like top 5 accounting units as far as cost are non-lapsing within the biennium. There's Medicaid, there's the developmental disabilities accounts, the nursing facilities accounts. Those are all non-lapsing within the biennium. This is the other very large service area within the department. And so I was looking to treat it the same as we do with the other large service areas in the department. The secondary reason, which is also a broad reason as to why we would make it non-lapsing in the biennium. We often see costs increase year over year. I don't think that's unusual. It, happens everywhere. Gasoline goes up, not the greatest example. That one loves to go up and down on a regular basis. But, the cost of a thing of paper goes up, over time. So we of course try to budget for that, but sometimes costs might be lower in the second year, lower in the first year, higher in the second year at a rate more than what we anticipated. So it allows us to carry forward the funds from the first year into the second year to continue to pay for those costs. From a lapsing perspective, across the biennium, math, at the end of the day, it all comes out because one, either we would carry those funds forward and continue to pay for it, and they would not have lapsed. And then whatever is left at the end of the second year does lapse in non-revolving accounts, in which this is not a revolving account. Or it's lapsing, it lapses the first year. The second year, there's not enough funds. I have to do a transfer item to transfer it from somewhere else, and we lapse less in the second year because that would have otherwise lapsed. So over the biennium, the net effect should be 0. It's really an ease of accounting, if you will, to just keep the funds that have been appropriated there in the same fund and bring them forward to the second year.
Are there any questions? I have a theory for you, and it's my own personal theory from having seen government budget officers work. And there's a use it or lose it mentality towards the end of the fiscal years, at least at the federal government level.
Yes.
Where there's an aggressive push to obligate, greater than 99.9% of the money. And in doing so, it seems that I've witnessed a lot of waste in that process.
Mm-hmm.
So which method do you think would result in the least waste, having 2 fiscal year ends that they need to manage towards, or to have one big one at the end?
So are you asking in theory or in practice of what I actually demand of my staff?
Your staff and your practice is that you never waste any money. I know that. I'm just
Oh, I
talking
wouldn't
about,
say that. I mean, that's an impossibility, right? Like, I'm not going to claim that I've never spent a dollar that maybe wasn't the greatest plan to spend that dollar. That would be impossible, right? I'm not perfect. My staff are not perfect. Nobody is. But
talk about the theory. What's the
so
theory?
yes, I can tell you that we do not endorse that methodology. I have refused things like mass supply orders on June 15th because I don't understand why you need 25 boxes of pens for the next 3 weeks. If you really need them, why don't we wait till next fiscal year? Or why don't you order just enough to get you through to June 30th? Because I know what that game is and I don't play that game either. And my staff are instructed to not approve those types of things, and they have pushed back on that regularly. In practice, I mean, in theory, I'm sorry, that was in practice. In theory, I mean, certainly making it non-lapsing just doesn't encourage that behavior in the first year. It certainly could still be, I guess, in theory, encouraged in the second year when it does get ready to lapse. So I don't think, if we're talking in theory, it just changes the timing of when that happens, not necessarily whether it would or wouldn't happen. But again, I would tell you that I work very hard to not let that happen.
All right. Are there any questions? So I think you could talk about the next one.
Sure. So this accounting unit 7051 is the CHIP account. This accounting unit was new in 2021. So the footnote would not have existed in 1819 because the accounting unit did not exist. The funds in this accounting unit now in 20 and 21 and 22, 23 would have come from 7948, which is standard Medicaid. These are, all part of the MCO contract. So we are just treating this accounting unit the same as we are treating 7948.
Okay. I'm not seeing any questions. You're on a roll.
Okay. The next 4, the first 2 are the PATH Center, and the next 2 are New Hampshire Hospital. So I'm a little confused that these weren't in 1819 because we thought that these had been in place for quite some time. Maybe it really was just last biennium, but we thought it had been longer than that. So 21, sorry, I'm just looking at my notes. So 21 is the food costs, I believe. Yes, so 21 is the food cost, 23 is utilities, if I'm remembering correctly. So I would say from a footnote perspective, to go back to the earlier comment about increasing costs, these footnotes are more important in the PATH Center than in New Hampshire Hospital, because this will be the first fiscal year 21 that we're in currently, will be the first year that we've had occupancy 24/7 in that building. So we've had to sort of estimate what the electricity and utility costs might be, where that has been a building that has been housing daytime state employees. So even fiscal year 21 won't be an exact science because it wasn't up and running 24/7 with full staff and full residents on July 1. So it's more important to carry those forward there at the PATH Center. The other thing with the food costs is, and New Hampshire Hospital does supply the food to the PATH Center. The food costs, I believe that contract comes up every 3 years, and I don't remember where in this biennium it ends exactly, but there's always a question of what happens with the food costs when those contracts get renewed. So that's why we tend to bring those forward in those class lines.
So Representative Irf, you've done the most research in the committee that I know of. about looking into these footnotes. Do you have questions, sir? Or does any committee member have questions?
I would say as usual, Karen always has great explanations.
I try. I keep way too much information in my head. That's all I do now. Okay, the last one is a little bit confusing, and Kevin pointed this out as well in an email last night, and Mary also this morning when I chatted with her. This footnote, this accounting unit isn't budgeted in 22-23, 2025-59. This grant ended, so I'm not sure why it shows up on the report, so it's a good catch. Kevin noted that it probably should be going with the following account, 3380, and that it actually shows in the PDF of the total budget on 3380. Is that right, Kevin?
Yes, that's right.
So that should not be there.
So my question is, what is this? Is this a simple administrative fix for you guys? Do you need a vote from the Division 3 or something else?
Kevin, I don't think we need any kind of vote, right? It's on 3380 where it's supposed to be, so it should be fine.
Yeah, the budget is actually fine. It's just the report that we printed out from the budget system assigned the footnote to the wrong accounting unit for some reason. So you don't need to do anything.
Do we need a vote on the 6 footnotes? Probably not unless somebody is opposed to them, right? Otherwise, there's no vote. I mean, unless somebody opposes these.
If you're going to keep them, I don't think there's any need for a vote.
Is there anyone who wants to delete any of those footnotes, those 6 footnotes we just went through? I'm not seeing anyone wanting to delete them, so let's cross footnote acceptance off our list.
Great, thank you so much.
What else do you have for us? Did you want to talk about Enhanced Fmap? That's a nice topic, or is that somebody else?
Kevin can lead the discussion, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Well, we want to make sure we've heard everything that you've prepared to tell us today. Are there any of these sections that you brought some notes in that we should be talking about, the HB2 sections?
I don't think so. And I think looking at the agenda, the TANF amendment, if that doesn't come until the end, when Mary is here, Mary is probably even more familiar with TANF than I am. So I actually not probably is. She most definitely is. So there's no reason that she can't speak to that one without me.
So Representative Wallner, if you're ready, why don't we go to you and bring Mary in, and that way Mary and Karen can both be available. Or I don't want to put you on the spot. Are you ready?
No, we're ready. I think, Kevin, do you want to, can you put up the new wording?
Yes,
Oh,
I will.
thank you. Thank you.
Might take me just a moment here.
Hey, Harry, if you have a second, would you try to get a status on Representative Weiler? Can you
Yes,
try
sir,
to
I will.
reach out?
I will. Yes, sir.
Okay. Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay. So I think if you look on line, I think it was line 4, I think it said to fully fund employment-related childcare. We took out the word fully.
Yep.
I think that's correct, right? And
Yes.
then let me see, down towards the bottom, right here. The commissioner, he or she, shall, to the extent allowed under federal regulation, utilize available federal TANF funds. That wording was added, the wording to the extent allowable, to put to put some, parameters around how much could be used from that fund.
Okay.
So that, I think that was the instructions we got.
Well, I was the only one who was commenting on this because I think Representative Weiler and maybe Representative Erf both acknowledged that this is a good amendment. And I just was concerned about the fine tuning. I mean, just in general, I like to leave this management discretion in the hands of the leadership of our departments and not be too directive with them, just because if we expect them to make tough decisions, we ought to be able to ask them to make routine decisions, but I'm thankful to you for considering different language, and I'm sufficiently satisfied with what you've done and very grateful for your work.
Thank you.
I would want to entertain a motion, but unlike the previous vote, I think this might be one that Representative Weiler might have more interested in, although if I were to guess, he's in favor.
And we would love to have his support.
Okay. Do you have any, so Ms. Rounds and Mary, you don't have any questions. Does anyone have any questions for the department?
I don't. I think
Representative
the wording is very good.
All right. Let's sort of informally just table this to see if we can come back when Representative Weiler's ready, and then we'll call a vote on it if that's okay. We'll ask for a motion. What did you learn, Representative Bean?
I learned that Representative Weiler is going to be with Representative Majors at 2 o'clock to get info from Ways and Means, and he's going to try to get back with us, but he's not sure.
Okay, so because this is the last day and we have work to do, so let's. I'd entertain a motion on the previous amendment.
I made the motion, but I assume Representative Wallner would like to.
Yeah, sure. So I move that we accept amendment 0911H.
And I'll second.
Okay, so is there any discussion on the motion? I'm not seeing any. So Mr. Clerk, are you ready to call a roll?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Representative Wallner,
Yes.
Representative Nordgren,
Yes.
Representative Rogers,
Yes.
Representative Erf,
Yes.
Representative Edwards,
Yes.
and Representative Bean. My vote is yes. Representative Weiler is absent. So 6-0.
So the motion passes and we've accepted this, and I assume, Mr. Ripple, that this will find its way into HB2 with the proper section number and everything?
Yes, it will.
Great. Okay, Ms. Rounds, it's still your choice. Do you have anything on the agenda that you think we're going to want to talk to you about?
We can talk about the enhanced FMAP. Like I said, Kevin can lead the discussion, and I'll add whatever needs to be added.
Sure, let me just bring that up.
I should say thank you, Representative Woolner, for identifying that and working through all the details. Good catch.
Thank you.
So as you heard previously, an enhanced federal FMAP was budgeted for certain Medicaid accounting units, mainly the managed care accounting unit, but it was not included in other accounting units. So for example, the developmental disabilities accounts, the Children's Health Insurance Program, did not assume the same enhanced FMAP in the first 6 months of fiscal 22 as some of the other accounts. So the department has submitted, and I'll scroll down here, a list of change sheets swapping out general funds for federal funds in anticipation of continuing to receive that enhanced FMAP. And there are a total of 5 accounts here, 4 within developmental services, and 1 is the Children's Health Insurance Program. And we can post these all on our website too. But up at the top here, we have a summary of the changes. And the net result of this change would be you would pick up 12.1 million in general funds in fiscal 22, and federal funds would increase by approximately the same amount.
Which technically speaking would happen in the real world anyways. This is just getting our budget more in line with the reality we're expecting.
I think that's correct. This is, you're saving general funds for budget purposes only here. They would happen regardless.
So do you have anything to add to that, Ms. Rounds?
I do not, other than, can I pick the things that keep funded? Can I trade off what you might consider be cutting to keep funding because of this?
So let me make sure I understand your question, because I think there's obviously a real question there. But so we're adding to the revenue. We're actually keeping the revenue lines the same. So that should, in theory, not impact any of the expenses associated with that accounting code, right?
Correct. It doesn't change any of the class lines. It just changes the revenue source.
Okay. So restate your question so that I understand what you're asking, or if it's a joke that I get the joke.
It's definitely, I mean, it's a joke. It is a question in a way, but how about I say it as a statement? I do hope that by, providing the information on this $12 million, that it will result in less reductions to the department's budget.
I understand the request and the rationale for it. From your position, it's an entirely reasonable request. So Mr. Ripple, what is the appropriate procedural work here for us to bring these worksheets into our proposed HB1 amendment?
Well, there's no amendment number here since it didn't come out of OLS, it came from us. But if you were so inclined, you could just vote to accept the changes, the proposed changes on these budget pages.
Is that a relevant vote? Do you need that? I mean, we can do it.
Yes, I would suggest making that vote because you are, after all, making a change to House Bill 1 as introduced.
Okay. Are there any just conversation about this still? Like any of the committee members want to ask Ms. Round some questions? Mr. Ripple? Representative Irf, yes.
I obviously fully support this. I'm just wondering, Karen, in our working with this, what's the best way to work with it in terms of our budget? Do we just accept, we just assume the general funds are 12 point whatever lower, and that'll all
Yes.
just work out in the wash when it gets to the Senate kind of a thing?
Yeah, Kevin will actually make the changes in the budget itself, and so it'll be represented in HB1.
Okay, so the way we work, we can just basically treat it as a reduction in general funds, and Kevin will compensate for all that when he does the real work.
Correct.
Thank you.
And we're actually going to vote on what Mr. Ripple puts together based on some of this input, I understand. We're going to vote on an HB1 amendment, and if we vote on this will be reflected in Mr. Ripple's work, and we'll be voting on that, right?
Well, I think this would be the final vote that Division 3 would take on these items. It'll certainly be included in the packet that's presented to the full committee when that exec session is held, and the full committee would vote on these changes in their totality.
So I think we could entertain a motion to accept these enhanced FMAP budget changes.
I would make that motion to accept the summary of enhanced FMAP budget changes into our general fund budgeting process.
Okay, so before that gets seconded, let's have.
I'll second.
Oh, you just seconded it. I saw your hand go up. Okay, all right. So it's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on the motion? Not seeing any. Representative Bean, would you call a roll?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair. Representative Wallner,
Yes.
Representative Nordgren,
Yes,
Representative Rogers,
yes,
Representative Earl,
Yes,
Representative Edwards,
Yes.
I'm Representative Bean. I vote yes. Representative Weiler is late. It's 6-0.
Okay, so, Mr. Ripple, would you please, that document that you prepared for me over lunch to show our status on HB2?
Yep.
Could you
Can.
share that? Could you share that next? Is there a
Hey,
question or
you still
comment?
there?
Oh, hey, Representative Bean, you're on, you're not, there you go. There you go. Okay, so let's just chunk through this in sequence. I think we've hit around them. It says here, Representative Earth, you have a proposal on a recommendation for section 24.
yes, amendment to the county reimbursement funds. Is that what you're referring to?
Yes, if you're ready to speak to that.
Yeah, let me, okay, I was trying to put, yeah, fine. Let me just bring it up so I can read it. So I know what I'm talking about.
So we'll come back to this document again, Mr. Ripple, but we'll take a dive into 24 from here.
Okay.
Okay. I'll wait for Mr. Ripple to bring the amendment to HB2 up. So I'm not so sure how much of the budget's incorporated in that, Mr. Ripple. Can I just speak to the budget, the analysis that I'm doing in the budget, and then we can tie it into this?
Okay, sure. Yes.
Okay.
So if you want, I can bring up that House Bill 1 amendment that's related to this that I emailed you earlier.
Sure. I mean, maybe I missed that. I've got a lot of
Well,
stuff.
I don't.
No, put it
I
up,
don't-
please.
Okay.
If it's the numbers, that would be great.
Okay.
Okay. So I'll speak to this first, and then this will tie back into the numbers that are in HB2. So this is the county cap part of the budget. And I'll come back to this, but basically we're proposing to raise the cap. But before I get to that, something else that happens, and perhaps Mr. Ripple, you could highlight the under FY 22, the 211,540, well, the 10,000, that's fine. Sure, that's a better way to do it. So, yeah. So part of the amended budget includes reducing the budgeted item for line 504 in each of the two coming years, 22 and 23, based on, and I believe all of this has been in this discussion has been in conjunction with the department, is the county is talking to the department. And the notion is that the counties have estimated the bed use rate, I guess, at 3,900 versus, I believe, 4,100 or maybe 4,000 was the number used in preparing the initial budget with the $221 million number in there. So this reduces that line by $10 million in 22 to roughly $211 million. And then essentially increases it from there, but decreases it from the budget, the originally budgeted amount by $5 million to $216 million. So making that change has an impact on the county cap as well, because it's a lower total expense. If you drop down to, where's the total expense? I guess it doesn't get, there you go, thank you. So that has gone, that has dropped down. Okay, so now down to what the, in addition to that change, what the underlying change is as follows. So the state is obliged, maybe that's the wrong word, but in any case, if my wording's bad, just correct me, to allocate from the general fund $5 million against the costs above, which include the nursing home payments. That's obviously the primary one, but it also includes the other three lines, 505, 506, 529, which are related but less costly. And what the proposal is to, well, let me go back. Traditionally, the county cap has gone up roughly, from what I understand, historically 2 to 3% per year, naturally. Last biennium, and maybe even the one before that, it started to change dramatically. And I recall that we, on Division 3 last biennium, put in, budgeted basically an increase to the county cap. I don't have that number right in front of me, but we did. And the idea this biennium is to do something similar and to build in a 2% cap per year increase. And the net effect of that is, what are the numbers? Is that the 14,550,000? It's just, I'm sorry, Kevin, it's a different way that I'm looking at it. Is it the 14,550,000? Is that the general fund increase in FY? There we go.
That's correct, yes.
So that increases the general fund in FY22 by the 14.5 million, and in 23 by a little, so by a little more than that. So that is the budget. So let's go back to the HB2.
Should we take questions on this?
Absolutely, of course.
Okay, 'cause I just want to make sure that everyone's had an opportunity to absorb what you just said and make sure they understand it. So I just want to throw some numbers at you that I remember from one of the briefings, and that was that the county said that they had been asked to budget at 4,100 nursing home beds, and that they thought that was too high, and therefore their 504 expense line was higher than it should be because of that estimation of nursing home beds, and that they advocated that number instead be 3,700. And I'm seeing 3,900 there, and so I just am testing my memory. Did that want to be 3,900, or was that supposed to be 3,700 in the footnote?
Well, when I looked it up in my email this morning from our county nursing home administrator, who's been pretty involved with this, he gave me the 3,900 number, and he gave me the other number as well, but I don't have it in front of me, but I did send it to Kevin. Did I say 4,000, Kevin, or 4,100?
4,100 originally, down to 3,900.
Okay, so those are the numbers that came from my county administrator. That's all I can speak to, Mr. Chairman.
No, that's great. I just am double checking my memory on the 3,700 estimate. So the 504 decrease of $10 million is the result of reducing the estimated nursing home beds by 200.
Correct. For next year, for 22.
And since it looks like we're carrying that into the second year of the budget, we're expecting that 3,900 nursing home beds to still be a good estimate.
Well, we're expecting the bed counts to go up because we're only reducing by 5 million in the second year of the biennium.
Okay. Does the footnote need to say that we're using a different estimate in the second year?
Well, you don't really need a footnote at all, but similar footnotes have been in previous budgets. If you wanted to include this, you could say the appropriation in class 504 reflects an initial caseload assumption of 3,900 beds, or you could simply say an assumption of 3,900 beds in fiscal year 22 and be silent on 23.
Okay, so to me, a footnote helps the reader of the spreadsheet understands to understand key assumptions, and this feels like a key assumption to me. So I'd be tempted to include that in a footnote, but I've never been an accountant. So is there a reason, if there's no reason to not include the extra detail for the second year, I think I'd like to see it done, just so that the Senate knows what they're looking at.
I don't actually have detail of the number of beds. I think it's built on the fact that they're expecting the bed count to start to go up again as the COVID pandemic wanes.
Yes, sir. That's why I was thinking that we were using a different bed count estimate in the second year. And I'm just trying to see if others think that we ought to be explicit about what estimate we're using in the second year. And I'm not hearing a lot of yes, that we should be explicit.
From a department accounting perspective, it doesn't change anything for us. If there's not enough funds in there, or the bed count ends up higher and so the costs are higher and there's not enough funds, we have to transfer funds from elsewhere in the department. So it doesn't really change anything from our perspective.
Okay. Representative Wallner, your hand is up.
Well, I'm reading the footnote, and I guess if I were just reading it, I would assume we were using 3,900 for both years.
So if nothing else, we should stipulate that that estimate's good for FY22 only. Is that your point, Representative Wallner?
No, I'm just saying that when I read it, I just assumed, when I read it initially, I just assumed it was for both years. I didn't, so I guess you could make it more, detailed and just say for 22.
So I think I'd rather delete it or make it more precise. Right now it's ambiguous and potentially confusing. Do you have a recommendation for that, Mr. Ripple?
I think you could vote on this if you were inclined to vote on it today with that change. And that's the version that we would put into the budget. And I'm actually trying to find this in Excel right now, so I can just change it right now and you can vote on that actual language.
Okay.
Perhaps you could say an initial caseload assumption of 3,900 beds. Or FY22.
Either initial caseload assumption or in FY22. Let me just try to find this in Excel.
While you're doing that, I want to tee up the other part of this spreadsheet conversation, which is we would be making a decision here to change FY22 to add 14.5 million of general funds to this line, to this account. And that's a big decision, and it would be good to get feedback on that from the committee.
Could I just make a comment there, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Would that be okay?
Yes.
Just so the committee understands regarding the way I went about this, and I won't say we, since I was starting with the FY21 adjusted base, that has built into it the county cap figures from the current biennium. So in fact, in terms of our thinking about what we're adding in general, in terms of what I shouldn't say we, what I'm thinking of what we're adding into what I viewed as the general fund base that was in those documents that that one-page document we went through a while back. The net impact is about $2 million, slightly over $2 million per year. So all total, it's about a $4.5 million general fund increase over those numbers that I provided to you in that one-page analysis.
Are there any questions about the general funds line and the proposal to change it? Conversations, questions? I'm not seeing any. Is the third thing on this, Representative Irf, something about the sequence of allocating funds?
That's all in the HB2 amendment that we can go back to if you want to, I can go through that. This is just the numbers for 22 and 23.
So, Mr. Ripple, I see that you've changed line 30 or whatever that is to include a more precision on the note. Thank you for that.
Sure.
So let's go look at the HB2 note. Can we see the whole section 24 in this view, or do you need to go one smaller? Oh, this is
It's
really
a couple
long.
pages.
Oh, that's all right. Then it's too long to try to get into one view. Sorry.
Well, there are 3 parts and we can talk about them and he can move as we go through the parts. And I'll start with, I think I'll be speaking about the top part first a second. And correct me if I speak about them in the wrong order, Kevin, but there are basically 3 parts to this, one of which is a replacement for the current HB2 part. We'll come to that. That's the numbers. The other 2 are as follows, and if I left one, if I'm not including something, I'm sure Karen will remind me. So right now, the funds as budgeted, there are 3 streams, so to speak. There's the initial $5 million from, well, I shouldn't say this is the ordering, but these are the streams. The $5 million that the state is obliged. There's the county cap, and there's the additional general funds that we're asking the county to include, the state, excuse me, to include. And my understanding is that as currently implemented, the funds, I believe the $5 million, I'm sorry. Yeah, the $5 million is the first money spent toward the total. The general fund increase is the second stream spent toward that total, the budgeted total. And the county cap is the last stream applied. Now, the effect of that can be if it goes over, then essentially the county's, how did I say that? I think I said that backwards. I believe it's the other way around. The counties go first, then the general fund excess, then the $5 million. So the counties basically get drained, and then you hit the general, and then you hit the general increase and hit the $5 million, which means that if you go over the budget, essentially the counties have already paid everything in, and the state essentially didn't pay in the last bit. And my understanding, and again, Karen can correct me if I'm wrong, but in some sense, this is related to discussions about enhanced FMAP, which are, to be honest, a little bit in terms of actual numbers beyond what I could fully grok. But instead of trying to, as I understand it, instead of trying to account for the enhanced FMAP in these lines and how they relate to whether the county should be in part of that or not, the agreement was just to switch it around so that all the general funds are applied first, expended first, and then the county funds. So to the extent that they go over the budgeted amount, the counties are not spending those last dollars, and that in some sense that balances things out. Karen, just if I'm totally wet there, please correct me.
Sure. So yes, this section does, if there is an enhanced FMAP, which right now there is, we're anticipating that there will be for the first 2 quarters of fiscal year 22. So this statute change presumably would affect those 2 quarters. The enhanced FMAP would get paid out, or would, I shouldn't say that. The enhanced FMAP would still get paid out to the providers. However, the amount that the providers receive would not change because of the enhanced FMAP. the offset to county funds would then result in county funds going back to the county. Kevin, can you also bring over Henry Lippman? He just sent me a message. He's been listening and has some additional input that I don't want to miss. So what I would say is, just from a policy perspective, do understand that currently the additional funds that result from the Enhanced Fmap get paid out to every nursing facility in the state. And this would change that the additional funds as the result of the Enhanced Fmap would go back to the 10 counties. And Henry, you said you had an additional comment there.
Yep. I just want to make sure I heard Representative Erf correctly. Again, for the record, this is Henry Lippman, the Medicaid Director. In terms of how the county cap funds flow to pay the expenses, the 5 million credit is taken up front. Then typically, because the cash flow is 40, counties pay their county cap amount 45 days in arrears. There's general funds used. So typically what's ending up happening is the $5 million credit, and the last session was a little over $9 million. Those funds are moving first. I think the issue that Karen just highlighted is that under current statute, the Enhanced Fmap that ends up in the nursing facility line 504 by statute ends up being distributed to all providers as opposed to being a credit to the cap. And I think that's what this language is attempting to address when there's an Enhanced Fmap situation. And I think similar to your earlier discussions this afternoon on something I think you deferred to vote later, there are times, and for example, in the American Rescue Act plan that was just approved by the president, there are conditions on the home and community-based service Enhanced Fmap that just got passed that says it has to be spent on services. I don't know if that's helpful or not.
Should I
Other
continue? Count?
questions?
I'm sorry.
Go ahead. No, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Keep going. The floor is yours.
Is it okay if I move on from that piece, Karen?
Yes.
Okay. So you want to scroll up, Mr. Ripple? So this next piece with the numbers in it is basically what's in the current budget, except with the numbers. I mean, I'm sorry, in the current HB2 number 24, except the numbers have been modified to correspond to the increase that I described to you when we're looking at the budget, with the 2% increase in the cap in 22 and another 2% increase in 23. And then if you continue scrolling up, well, actually you don't have to, it's right there. So the third part of this sets that 2% increase going forward. So that in the next biennium, and of course, these can all be changed by the legislature, but this would set it such that when the state, when the department does their initial budgeting, they would essentially be including the county, these adjustments to the county cap that have been going on over the years in their initial budgeting, as opposed to simply having in the $5 million. So I think that covers all three of the changes into this section.
Can I just mention something on that?
Of course. Yes.
I just want to make sure that it's understood that the consequence of that is that there's commitment of additional general funds. So if there's a increase in the number of beds or an increase in the cost of nursing facilities or CFI at a rate greater than 2%, it means that there will be potentially significant additional general funds appropriated.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
I'm assuming in that case that the top line would be going up, the budget line, the
Correct.
504 line.
Correct, but if we can only increase the county contribution by 2%, the rest would have to be made up with general funds.
Yeah, well, that's what it is now, correct? And that's what we're talking about.
Okay.
I mean, the expectation is that, I'm sorry, go ahead, Member Chairman.
No, I just was gonna address what I think Ms. Round's point is that the lower we fix that percentage, like it's been 3%, you know, the last few years, if we made it 2%, it essentially exposes the state to more inflation risk than they have now. And so if there's a reason why that makes sense, I would say it may be because the county, when they go to get money, they're going to one source, and that's property taxes. And we have an enormous issue with property tax being escalated, and we don't want it to get escalated to the point of exceeding fixed income earners' cost of living adjustments and the like. And so I think trying to set a course at a 2% level instead of a 3% level is just meant to reflect that if the state needs to find more money, it needs to find it somewhere other than property taxes. I think that's what that's saying. And I know you don't necessarily agree because you're just making a point. So I just wanted to give you what I think the full side of your point is.
Yes, and I don't have an opinion either way. It's a policy decision to be made by the
Right.
legislature. I just wanted to make sure that was understood.
Yes. So are there any questions from the committee? There's a lot of information here. Representative Wallner, do you have a question? No?
No,
Okay.
thank you.
Okay. So when we looked at the spreadsheet, can we go back? Oh, there's more words here. Is there more stuff on HB2 we should be talking about because there's more bold letters or bold words? Like line 20, did we talk about line 20? Do we need to talk about line 20? It is bold. It's a change.
I believe that's I didn't have, it was the wrong place in the amendment.
Representative
believe
Burke talked
that is-
about this earlier.
So that's the allocation order. That's part of that.
Yes, sorry.
No, that's all right. Are we at the bottom of this amendment?
That's the
Yeah.
bottom.
Okay. I have absolutely no sense what the committee is thinking about this. Does anyone want to volunteer thoughts on what they're thinking about this? Nobody wants to volunteer thoughts. So I think we have to wait for Representative Weiler to come back on this one before we have any motions. All right, could we go back to your sheet that you were showing us? We just saw section 24 and we took a diversion. Can we go back to the summary?
Sure.
And you're getting close to having to leave, Ms. Rounds. What I just want to ask you again, because we value your input, that if there's something that you think you're prepared to speak to or may need to relative to any of these sections that we haven't closed out. Gray represents closed out.
So I would say 26 and 33 are probably two
Okay.
that I would like to participate in if you plan to talk about them today.
Yeah, I think I actually would like to vote on 26. So let's, I'm going to make a note that we're skipping 24 and so we can get to 26. 26, there was some discussion on it the other day. And as I recall, the governor had, or the governor's office, the people had decided to try to terminate the flexibility January 1 of 2023, which is interesting because it wasn't the end of the biennium. So can you go to section 26? And so if we agreed with the governor, we wouldn't do anything. We would just leave that. And I don't think we have an amendment prepared to do anything to section 26 anyways. Or Mr. Ripple, are you aware of an amendment for section 26?
I am not.
So I guess that means if nobody's trying to change it, then we don't have to even vote as a committee because we're just rolling with what's in HB2. Is that a proper legislative interpretation?
You have been taking votes to keep sections in. So in
Okay.
order to be consistent, I think you would vote on this one too.
Okay, Representative Wallner?
I was just gonna say that I would vote no on this section. I feel it's much more appropriate to go to the end of the biennium. It's just a small thing. It's just a little different of opinion, but I didn't prepare an amendment.
Okay, so I genuinely appreciate that feedback because I'll defer a vote on that. Did you have a comment, Ms. Rounds? I mean, you cited this may be one where you had something for us.
No, I just wanted to make sure to be available for questions. I think I testified to how important I think this is to keep for the biennium. And I know the governor's office has, a different belief, and that's understandable, but I feel really strongly about it being for the entire biennium.
Thank you for your testimony. All right, you've raised your hand, Representative Roof.
Yeah, yes, I think I'm comfortable with changing it as well. I mean, putting it back the way it was, changing it from what it is now, I guess. If it help makes it
Okay,
easier. I'm sorry.
what it is now is it needs to be amended because
Right.
if we left it alone, it would have expired in the current fiscal year. So that we basically have two decisions. One, do nothing, and it becomes January 1, 2023, where we ask for an amendment to change it to June 30, 2023. Do you have a preference on which of those two things we do?
I guess I'd be inclined to ask Kevin to make such an amendment. To change it to January, I'm sorry. Yeah, when do you want to take effect, Karen?
June 30th, the end of the
June, so
biennium.
change it back to June, right, okay, change it back to what's in the brackets, June 30, 2021, thank you.
No. June 30, 2023.
Okay, sorry, yes,
Correct, yes.
I'm sorry, I'm a little
If we
tired,
have a time machine, we gotta keep going forward.
no, I apologize.
All right.
If we have a
so
time machine, I'm going pre-COVID, just for the record.
I think I'm going back
I'm
to
going
when I was-
post-COVID.
Yeah, post-COVID, that's better.
I'm going to age 23 myself. I don't know where you guys are going. Okay, so you've got that. You're going to draft an amendment.
Yep, I'll have that drafted.
All right. So we'll skip further discussion on that. Can you go to 33?
And this was the one you voted on some tentative language the other day, and I said I needed to put that into a formal amendment from OLS, and I have that, so I can just pull that up momentarily.
Okay. Okay, Ms. Rounds, would you just remind me what we were thinking when we asked you to come up with different language? And I know Mr. Ripple got this done for us, but I think you crafted the language initially.
I did, and What we were thinking is that the original language was added by the governor's office. I did not have an opportunity to discuss it with them before they put it in HB2. And so when the document became public, I shared my concerns with the governor's office, which they immediately understood and realized that there were some unintended consequences. And as such, were comfortable with me drafting language to meet the same goal, which is some transparency around when we accept federal dollars that may supplant a general fund dollar, but not to put a restriction that may have some unintended consequences.
Are there questions? Does the committee have any questions? I'm not seeing any questions. I think we could take a motion on this.
I'd make a
should
motion
we-
to accept the amendment number 090808H to HB2.
Is there a second?
We can't hear you.
Is there a second? I can't tell Representative Wallner if you want to make a second or not. You're
You're on mute.
muted. You're on mute, ma'am. Can you unmute her? Mr.
Ask
Riffle?
her to unmute.
I was trying to enlarge it so I could read it, I said. I'm
Oh.
sorry.
That's all right. If you're not ready for us to vote on it, it hasn't been seconded yet, we can withdraw it and give you more time.
Could Karen speak to it again? I'm sorry, I was a little distracted and then I couldn't read it, so.
Sure. So the original language the governor's office had put in HB2 said that
Should we show
anytime.
them? Let's go back to the original language for real quick.
I have the original language in front of me.
Okay,
So that language said anytime that the department accepted a federal fund, either because of a change in allocation or what they called the miscalculation, or due to a new program, that any general fund it supplanted would be lapsed, which the most sort of forefront example I can give you is the Enhanced Fmap with standard Medicaid. We wouldn't have had enough money in the Medicaid account to pay for current caseloads if that had happened. So we would have been forced to lapse money out of that account and then had to either find funds elsewhere in the department or come back to the legislature and say we need money, even though we're lapsing this other money. So, and then when it comes to cost allocation, sort of a secondary example, you know, there are times when a salary like mine might include one fund source that's $100 of general funds, and the allocation might change that might offset that general fund, and then but I might need that general fund in someone else's salary because their allocation changed in the opposite direction, and we wouldn't be able to transfer that. We'd have to lapse the dollar and then find another one. So the governor's office realized that they were that was going to put some undue burden on the department, and so they wanted still some transparency around when that does happen. So the intent of this language is that when we go to fiscal committee with a transfer item with an accept and expend, that we will report on when that might be happening, and then what the plan is for that general fund dollar. Have I transferred it for another purpose? Am I using it for another purpose, or will it actually lapse, which in many cases that does happen. For example, when we were talking about additional 4E earn earlier today, when we earn those extra federal dollars, in all likelihood, we're going to lapse that. So there are times that does happen, but the language was written in such a way that it was not going to work. So we thought here was reasonable. The governor's office agreed. Is that helpful?
Okay, I'll second it.
okay, so
Thank
we
you.
have
Thank you.
a motion and a second to adopt amendment 2021-0908 hotel. Is there any discussion? There being no discussion, Representative Bean, can you take a roll?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Representative Wallner,
Yes.
Representative Nordgren,
Yes.
Representative Rogers,
Yes.
Representative Earth,
Yes.
Representative Edwards.
Yes.
I'm Representative Bean. I'm a yes. Representative Weiler is still absent. So it's 6-0.
All right. Thank you for that. So I guess we just about hit your end time at 2:26. Ms. Rounds. So thank you for coming in today. If you want to go away now, thank you so much for your help. And is Mary on the panel so that we can continue random conversations?
Yes, Chairman, I'm here.
All right. Let's go back to the sheet on HB2s. I think we skipped over 25. What's the issue here?
This is the language regarding prospective repeal of eligibility for access to the state's mental health system. So I think I can pull up that section. Although the section itself isn't very instructive. But I'll pull it up anyway.
Yes, we had some dialogue with the public on this. Mr. Skibby had some suggestions. I bounced them off of the policy committee. The policy committee initially said that everything was okay because this was going to be a moot point any moment because there has already been language adopted that is to go into effect. And so this is going to be a moot issue, and I was expecting to be able to come in here and say we can either leave it or delete it because it's going to be irrelevant here pretty soon. But then there was some follow-up emails on it, and the policy committee came and said, maybe there is a reason to amend this. So I did not ask for an amendment to be crafted, and I don't think Mr. Ripple, that based on that email exchange, you probably didn't have any cause to do an amendment.
I didn't draft an amendment based on that email exchange. I did draft 2 standby amendments just in case you decided to either take it out or in case you decided to accept the language provided by HHS and discussed last week. But I don't have anything based on the email exchange from this morning.
Okay, so what I'm thinking maybe we need to do, because I do want to move past this issue today to put as much stuff to bed as we can. I think I would kick the can on this over to the Senate because there's a couple of different views on what this language should really be. So I think we can accept the governor's language, and then I can take a homework assignment to try to figure out between Mr. Skibby and Representative Marsh and the governor's office what this language probably really wants to be. So that's my thinking, Representative Wallner.
Well, I mean, I was thinking that we could just take it out. I was actually on the opposite thinking here, that we should just take it out, and if there's a need for it, I guess it would come in the Senate. If there's no need for it, then it'll just stay out.
Okay, I could go with that approach as well. So is there more conversation about this? Anyone? I don't know what happened to my screen where I see everyone. Let me see. Oh, there it is. Okay, do you have further comment? Your hand's still up, Representative
Oh,
Warner.
sorry about that.
Okay, no problem.
I'm lowering it.
Is there any comment? Is anyone predisposed to go to do anything with this 25 other than either keep it or delete it? And we don't have an amendment to delete it. So I think if we did vote, we'd be asking Mr. Ripple, unless you created an amendment to delete it, is that one of the
did.
two options?
That is
Oh,
one of
you
the
were
two
good.
options.
Radar Ripple. That's twice. That's great.
All right, so I can bring that up now.
I think you've done this before.
He's a mind reader.
Okay, so we have an amendment. It's a pretty simple one. Does anyone want to make a motion?
I'll make a
Representative
motion.
Wong,
I'll make a motion.
to accept 2021-0904 hotel.
Yes, that's it.
I'll second.
Seconded. Is there any discussion? Okay, so Representative Bean, would you call a vote?
Yes, sir. Representative Wallner,
Yes.
Representative Nordgren,
yes,
Representative Rogers. Representative Rogers,
Yes,
thank you. Representative Earth,
Yes.
Representative Edwards,
Yes.
and Representative Bean, I'm a yes. Representative Weiler is still absent. That's 6-0.
Okay. Motion being passed 6-0, this is adopted. We'll delete section 25. All right, very good. So we've done 24, 25, 26. I think we've moved past 33. 34 is not ready for a vote. We will not vote on that today. Take a vote on Monday. And I know that's pushing it, Mr. Ripple, but I don't think this is ripe for a vote.
Okay.
Okay, so we just talked about section 35 before lunch. So let's get a sense of where the committee's at on that one. Do you have a document that you could show us to just show their, the page they used, the 5
Today's
the
agenda.
matrix with the 5 items?
I think this is today's agenda.
I can find it. I don't have it up at the moment.
Okay. So just to kick off a conversation, I've not read the report. It seems to me like A&M is probably a pretty credible organization, and it seems to me like they grounded their findings in hard academic data. I haven't seen the way they did their cost analysis or benefit analysis, but I would be more comfortable if I did just look at it to double check it, but we're getting this a little late in the process. So that's it. And I have not, for whatever reason, taken the time to do a deep dive into this A&M study or these recommendations. I think I could get pretty comfortable with the top 4. The bottom one, the DD redesign, may have the biggest actual impact, but I personally am a little uncomfortable with the notion that the state is picking where group homes are going to go, and those aren't developing organically to the community. And I think I mentioned why, because the state funding, as I remember, on group homes is actually to keep them sustained is actually pretty small. It's remarkably small. It could be like 50% or something. I wish I recalled the numbers, but the charitable donations for ongoing maintenance of these things is really critical. So I could see being an advocate of the top four, and I would just really need to be convinced to go with the fifth one, the DD redesign. That's my conversation. Does anyone want to say what they're thinking? Representative Urf?
Sure. I guess I'm not inclined to go for $10 million at this point in the process, from sort of macro point of view. The first four also look relatively reasonable to me in terms of something to budget at a late date as we are. Or we could pass on to the Senate. Presumably they will have had more time to get in and actually analyze this. But if the choice are between the 10 million or nothing, I would go with nothing. If the choice was something in between, I would, as you indicated, the first four seemed like a reasonable thing to budget at a late date, since the total, I think, is around $600,000 roughly estimated costs. So that's my 2 cents, or $600,000.
Yeah, it is about 600,000. Good eye. Representative Rogers?
Yeah, I'm just wondering about what if we started this in the second year instead of starting it in the first year of the biennium? It's a 4-year project, and I know everybody would like to start it in the first year, but it's something we've done quite often with projects like this is in order to save some money in this budget, started in the second year, and cut the expenditure in half maybe, so that we spread it out instead of in the first 4 years that we're doing it. It becomes a 5-year project from now. So we have the year to get ready for it, so to speak, and start it in January of next year instead of this year. And I mean, it's not, the appropriation doesn't lapse anyway until June. We can extend the lapse date out to June 30th, 2024 maybe, and look about saving some money that way. Just a thought.
Thank you for that. Representative Wallner?
I mean, I think it's a really good idea. I think it's a great idea because it would also give the department some time to have more conversation with providers at this point. I'm a little worried about, I want to be sure that providers have the time for the input that is really important for the planning of this. And as far, I know that the first four are very important, and I agree, they sound very good. The DD one, I'm very concerned about us having 38 people in Florida. That just seems like incredible that we are sending New Hampshire residents to Florida to be cared for. They're away from their families. They're some of the most people with some of the most intense problems and issues of any clients that we have in our systems, and we send them to Florida. And I think we need to find a way to, I'm glad that they've identified this. I had never really been aware that there were that many of these clients out of state. So, and especially that far out of state. So I would like to see it. I think the idea of pushing it out a year is a good idea. And it also gives us time to talk with providers. Just my thoughts.
Thank you. Representative Nordgren?
Can't hear me.
Your hand is up. You're free to speak. Representative Nordgren?
Okay, I didn't hear you, sorry. Yes, I would echo what Mary Jane said. I think there are all kinds of concerns to us that never even knew about the people being sent to Florida. We knew about the people the children who were going out of state who weren't in Sununu. So there are all kinds of questions about the cost of that and where that even appears in the budget. All those people have gone to Florida and other places. And then I would also have a question of whether or not we can extend it. I agree with not starting until the 2023, but I'm not sure we can extend it to 2024. That would be an answer we could get from Kevin.
Representative, well, do you want to, let's, Mr. Ripple, do you understand the question there and Representative Nordgren's comment?
I think it could be extended beyond the current biennium.
Yeah, I just think we need a lot more information about the current situation before we can really launch into a whole new plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Irf?
I tend to agree with that concept. I'm wondering if we're going down that road, would it just make sense to put in a bill next year that will go through the process? And we'd also have more importantly, I guess, a better idea of finances, the state's finances by that time. We'll make it easier to perhaps go for the whole bailiwick at that point and be able to deal with all the people in Florida as well as all the other parts.
So are you suggesting that another alternative would just be to try to have this become a House bill with a fiscal note sent to a policy committee and we would start to hear it in January as a body?
Correct.
What do people think about that as an alternative? Representative Rogers?
I guess that I would think if we wanted to go that route, I would rather that we pull it out similar to what we've done with the forensic unit and a couple of other things, I think, and keep it ourselves, because it's kind of our, we heard the first thing, but keep it ourselves and we work on it so that it be possibly we could finish it this session or this year, have it ready to go so that they could actually start on it into January of this year, of next year rather, the second year of the biennium. But I think that we've started to hear everything and maybe we should continue it. And maybe we could ask whatever policy committee, be it Health and Human Services, or whatever, to sit in with us. I know that's something we've done in the past in this committee, is had one or other policy committee sit in with us and work with us on it. But I think it would be, I'd like to see us do similar to what we're doing on the forensic unit and keep it here and work on it after. I know that you've done that with the other one, Mr. Chairman. I think that might be a route to go where we started. And it's something that we know what we're looking at and how we want to deal with it. Maybe combine the two ideas of pulling it out and working on it, but keeping it here and having us where we know the money part of it at least, and how to spend it and how to go forward with it, do it that way.
All right. Representative Waldron, Woolner and Nordgren. Sorry, you just became one person there. If you all had previous comments, do you want to take another iteration here? Go ahead, Representative Nordgren.
Yeah, no, I think we're all sort of going the same direction, that we don't want to start it now. And I would maybe agree with Kathy that we could include HHS committee in our discussions. I just think we're not ready to do this. I think we need to do more research on how all those cases are handled now, what's the budget for that, and dig down deeper. And I think we need the time for that rather than to start it in the first year of the biennium. Thanks.
Okay. I just, a Representative Irf, go ahead. Representative Irf, your hand
You
was
couldn't hear
up.
me, could you? I'm sorry. I said I didn't want to interrupt you. Go ahead and I'll come in after you're done.
No, you're good. Go. We want to hear what you say.
Okay. I guess Kathy's more familiar with the process, of course, than I am, but her suggestion sounds very reasonable to extract it, I guess, as a retained bill sort of. We can do that out of HB2. I think that's what she's kind of suggesting. And that seems like a reasonable approach going forward.
Okay, so I would just remind people what the administrative cost here is and whether or not we have the bandwidth to do it. And when I say we, I mean the royal we of the LBA. We've got Mr. Ripple scheduled to be with us, I think, on April 12th to deal with the forensic hospital. But he's going to be in the throes of doing all this again with the Senate. And so there's not a whole lot of bandwidth that he's got available to support us with meetings and all. And so I would just want to make sure that if it's the sense of the committee that we do what we're doing with the forensic hospital, that we just do it in light of the idea that the LBA is a scarce resource for the next couple of months, and we need to be careful not to try to overcommit them. But I don't know who raised their hand first, Nordgren or Wallner. So Representative Nordgren.
No, I just wanted to say, I don't think this needs to be done at the same time the Senate is working on the budget. I think this is something we can do later. I don't think we need to rush with it, because I think if we make the decision that there'll be no money allocated for the first year of the biennium, I think that's something we can take our time with. Thank you.
So just to pursue that, what is the on-off switch for the second year? I mean, just if you imagine that we did spend time on it and we decided sometime in, say, August or something that the second year isn't ready either. If we put it into HB2 now, what is the off switch if we hit that situation? And I'll just turn the phone over to Representative Wallner.
Well, I don't know what the off switch is. I mean, I really liked Kathy's first proposal of pushing it out a year, but getting going. I'm a little worried that if we don't have something in the budget, to address it, it will not happen during this biennium. I mean, we might have hearings, we might have discussions, but the thought that we're going to be appropriating money in the off budget year seems unlikely to me. So if we take this out and we don't leave something in so that they can get going in the second year, push that date out a bit. I just feel like we're going to lose the biennium, and I think for myself, I just got so concerned about those people. I mean, I just had not been aware that we had 38 people out of state, and that I really felt like they would be much better served and their families would be better served if they had opportunities here in New Hampshire to receive their care. And I'd like to see that part of the report, I really would like to see us get going on. And I think the other parts, that they don't cost a lot, they're significant also. I'm not sure what the off switch would be, but I do think that it would be better if we would leave something in and have it start maybe a little later. Just my thoughts.
So may I ask you a question?
Mm-hmm. Sure.
I think based on what you've said, maybe there's the possibility where you could be satisfied within the second year, because this was 4 group homes, I believe. What if we were to say in the second year, 1 group home or 2 group homes, but not maybe 4? You know, is there another way to slice this to space it and get going, but get going with some training wheels? What do you think about, how do you react to that possibility?
I guess I didn't hear, I'm sorry that I did not. I'm sorry that I did not hear. I didn't hear 4. I know you had referred to it before and I just must have missed in the presentation. I must have missed that it was 4 group homes. For some reason I wrote down, actually, I thought it was more than that. That they wanted to develop. Let's see.
Can anyone clarify that data point? I'm pretty sure it was 4. I'm like 85% confident. Whoever can verify that data point, just speak up because there are 4 hands up.
4 is what I remember. What I
Okay.
wrote down.
So Representative Rogers, your hand is up. Would you have something to share?
I had 4 written down, but Mr. Chairman, I have a proposal or a proposition for you. Would you be willing to give me the weekend to work with Representative Wallner and Mary Calise to see if I can come up with an amendment and Kevin Ripple amendment that would give us some starting money, but also incorporate in a plan where the division would be able to work on what we want to do the second year, so that we give some startup money for the second year that would accomplish enough so we get going, but also give the division some capacity to work on it, what process and how we move forward, so that we don't do the entire expenditure, but we do expend some part of the money. And I would have an amendment. As soon as I get it, I'll forward it to you. And then with your permission, if you want to, we could forward it to the entire division. I'll try to do it as quickly as I can, but I think it's going to take talking to all those people to come up with some of the answers that are being questioned right now. But I'd be willing to work on that and try to put it together if you're willing to allow me that time.
So I love everything you said and I appreciate it and I want to say yes, but before I say go for it, let's just touch base with Mr. Ripple because we have some timelines here. What do you think, Kevin, about us having a proposal over the weekend and talking about it on Monday, and where does that take us?
I think that would be fine. So I think I heard you mention previously that you wanted to vote everything out, if not on Monday, then on Tuesday. And that would certainly provide time to have an amendment by either Monday afternoon or Tuesday morning. I guess the only issue is if the committee decided to revise that amendment into something different, it might take a little bit longer.
So with that, Representative Rogers, I thank you for the offer and ask you to make it happen and then coordinate it how you see fit over the weekend so that we can discuss it on Monday.
And if I can possibly get it to you and Mr. Ripple prior to Monday, I will. I will try to
Okay.
do it as quickly as I can.
So I think I've heard the consensus that the people on this phone call, I haven't actually heard from Representative Bean, who may have a different opinion, but that the consensus seems to be that we're okay with the first 4 items. And what we're really just trying to figure out is the right way to handle the DD redesign. Is that your understanding? And you're gonna have a proposal that deals with all 5 of these, or just the DD redesign?
I'm not sure yet. I'm going to try to see what makes everyone the happiest.
Okay. I'm good with that. Representative Wallner, your hand is up.
Yes, I'm good. I'm good.
Okay. Representative Rogers, your hand is still up.
Oh, that's just because I forgot to put it down. Sorry.
Okay, you still have the floor if you want it. Okay, so let's, if we can you take us back, Mr. Ripple, to the HB2 summary?
Sure.
Okay, so we're sort of tweaking 35 there. where Representative Rogers et al. Will come back and we'll talk about that some more on Monday. What's going on with 37? Section 37.
That was the $1.5 million appropriation that you discussed.
Oh,
earlier.
yeah. Yeah, we deleted that. Okay. 38. This is the one we talked about with the 200,000.
Yes.
All right. So I just think it should have already been in the appropriations bill. It should already be in HB1. And they say that they overlooked it. But if it's an ongoing operation and an ongoing program, I don't know how you overlook something like that. So I'm okay with, like, I could see accepting 38 and zeroing out the additional money so that they feel like they've got the authority to proceed, but they need to figure out the money because it's an ongoing operation. That's me starting a conversation. That's not my final thought, but that's kind of what I'm thinking about that. Any Representative Irf?
Well, I think we may have left it, or perhaps maybe I may have left it, that Karen can suggest, whether Karen might suggest a change request for the HB1.
I think what Karen talked about earlier was if you were to delete section 38, she would hope for an appropriation in House Bill 1. So they would continue to get that $200,000, but there would also be a federal match associated with it.
Right, understood. And I believe she also indicated that she could make a change request to affect that.
Yes.
But I think she's asking for support for 200,000 more to go into the general funds.
Oh,
It's
yes,
not just a change request, it's also more money.
It's right. No, that's certainly true. Yes.
I think what she requested is the same amount of money that's currently budgeted in section 38 in terms of general funds only.
This would move it out of HB2 and we'd need to have an amendment to plus up HB1 by 200,000.
Right.
So
That'd be the change request.
Yes.
So I'm being parsimonious and thinking you don't need another 200,000. Figure out how to get it done. But that's why that's a conversation point. What are your thoughts?
If I may, Mr. Chair, I have already done the change request for Karen to move, appropriate that 200,000 into House Bill 1 with a 75% match. So a total of 800,000, 600,000 being federal, 200,000 being general funds. I don't know that she had time to submit that to Mr. Ripple.
That makes it sound like a bargain, right? Getting 200, you get 800,000 for 200,000. That's pretty great.
Not a bad rate.
Not a bad rate.
Does that mean 200 for 50?
Go. I'm sorry. What's your question?
Would that, using that ratio, could we do 50 and get 200, which is what they need?
Mary, are you comfortable answering that? That's a tough question.
I would have to check with other folks within the department before I'd be able to answer that.
So if, Mr. Ripple, assuming you had in your inbox, but you've not looked at it yet, a change request for that to go into HB1, is that something that is appropriate for us to vote on? And can we vote on that Monday, assuming it's in your inbox?
You could. I don't have it yet, but if I could get that, then you could vote on it as soon as I have it.
So Mary, do you have a thought there? When do you think you'll have it?
I can send it over immediately. I just need to attach it to the email and I can send it to Kevin right away.
So while you're doing that, let's come back to 38 and I forget what we're doing with 41. Oh, me. I keep forgetting what we're doing with 41 because I dropped the ball again. I didn't get hold of Representative McGuire on what her reasons were for not thinking that this was a good idea. So I apologize to the committee. This one's on me. I messed up.
And I did ask Nancy and Mike Hoffman in Division 1 if Division 1 had any input into these sections since they were originally assigned to them. And their answer was no input that they're aware of.
So this is where I need the elders of the committee to give me a recommendation. Should we just approve this in section 41 and work it in the Senate, or should we delete it here and allow the Senate to add it back if they want, or a third choice? Representative Wallner, you got any advice for a young chairman?
I think, I mean, to me, I think that we should leave it in, and the department has already done the work in the budget for this. And what I heard was that it was all something that the department and the licensing people have been working on for a long time. So I would leave it in. If there's problems with it, I guess people will arrive in the Senate. We didn't really have anybody come and speak against this.
No, we didn't. Other than a hallway conversation I had with Representative McGuire, there was no negative input.
And we didn't have any testimony in the public hearing saying yes, no, or it seems like it has not had a lot of controversy. So I would leave it in.
Okay, I see your point. Let's throw it open. Is there anyone in the participants list that wants to comment on section 41? Do you see any? We just lost an attendee, so I guess they don't want to say anything. All right, Representative Woolley, your hand is up. Did you have more?
No, that was it. I am going to be leaving though shortly, so.
Okay, yeah, so I would, I'm fine with that. I'm okay with that recommendation. I think that's a fine recommendation. Do you want to make a motion that we accept section 41, since that's what we've been doing?
Sure, I'll make a motion that we accept section 41.
Is there a second?
Second,
Seconded.
Nordgren, second.
Seconded by Representative Nordgren. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Not hearing any. Representative Bean, are you ready to take a roll call?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Representative Wallner,
Yes,
Wait a second. I don't, are we still in the conversation piece of this? Because you put your hand up before he asks you your vote. Do you have?
I'm sorry, I missed your motion. I assume
So
there,
so the motion on the floor is that we're about to vote on whether or not Division 3 wants to accept section 41 of HB 2.
okay, and the motion is to accept it, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
yes.
Thank you. Sorry to bother you.
Oh, that's all right. I'm
No.
sorry to interrupt the vote, but I think your hand went up before we actually took a vote. So go ahead and start your roll call over again, Representative Bean.
okay, Representative Wallner,
Yes,
Representative Nordgren,
Yes,
Representative Rogers,
Yes,
Representative Earth,
Yes,
Representative Edwards,
Yes.
and Representative Bean. I vote yes. Representative Weiler still absent. That's 6-0.
So, Mr. Ripple, would you take us back to the HB2 summary sheet?
Yes, just one moment.
We're about a few minutes from losing some of our committee for a little while. So let's just take a look at what we still have to do.
One that you could do right now is section 38. I've gotten the email from Mary. So you have the House Bill 1 change that would accompany that. And I also have an amendment to delete section 38 from House Bill 2. So you could take care of both sides of that if you wanted to.
So we could go either way, or we could do both.
Right.
Okay, we could do both. So tell me what's below on the second page or third page. Did you?
I think they're only the veterans home sections.
Okay, because I thought I had asked for the informal HB2s to be added to this list.
And you know,
There's like
I forgot to include those. So that's my mistake.
Okay, no, that's fine. And the reason I was hoping it would be there is so that we can talk about it today to get a sense. One of them was related to the email I sent. I got some feedback from Representative Rogers about a proposed change to the way the forensic hospital was going to look, and she had a couple of comments for me. Representative Wallner, correctly pointed out that we're planning to discuss it on April 12th, and so while our colleagues are away, the people who remain could talk about that proposal just to share information. There will be no votes, and if we get through with that conversation, we could just go into recess until 4 o'clock if you think that's enough time. We're getting pretty close to being done anyway, so. So let's go ahead and look at the 1 or 2 votes that we have on 38, please.
Sure. So I'll show you the House Bill 1 side of it first.
So the big one that didn't get written there, that's the informal one, is the personnel reductions. I wanted to be able to talk to people about the potential of that one. And we really need our full committee here when we do that, I think.
So this is the change sheet that Mary sent over, and if you need a further explanation, perhaps you can speak to that.
So just walk us through what's going on from the governor's proposal. Show us his general funds request and what the new amount would be, just to be really obvious.
Okay, well, so for this section, I can pull up the governor's House Bill 2. It was a $200,000 general fund appropriation in 22, and I'll bring that up momentarily, but you can see down here, the department is requesting essentially the same, but it includes the federal funds of $600,000 to go along with it. So I'll bring up the governor now. Let's see. And here is the original $200,000 appropriation.
Yes, sir. Do you know where in the governor's budget HB1 the line item is that we're adding to?
It is in account 9540, and that's in the Office of Information Services.
So can you just verify for us that this change is using the proper governor's budget baseline and is adding to it by 200,000? I
I
mean,
can't-
normally that we would just assume that's what happened, but I don't want to assume it. If you could
Right,
just
right.
Double check it.
Sure.
Okay, so the number we're talking about right now is 26.070.
Yes.
So it should be 26.270 when we go look at the change request.
And it's slightly
what
more
was
than
it?
that. Sorry.
There's that $804 thing floating in there that's inconsequential.
Right.
Is that the actual number?
What's your question, Representative Erf?
Is she actually, because of whatever she's doing, put in $200,804, or was 804 already there? So she's really adding just the 200,000?
If I may, I noticed when preparing this change request that $804 was budgeted in error. That agency income will not actually be received, and took the opportunity to correct that at this time as well, which is why it's slightly more than the 200,000.
Okay, but if I'm just trying to balance things for our analysis, I should just use the 200,000, the 804 is something else altogether?
Yeah, the 804 is not related to the 200,000.
Okay, and can you tell me what line number or line numbers the expenses are on?
So this would be adding to class 102 in accounting unit 5952. Unfortunately, I used a prior change request and rushed and didn't update all of the numbers that I should have. So my apologies for that. I will send Kevin a corrected one that will only change the accounting unit. It will not change the actual dollars. But it would be in class 102, which is a contract line.
Let's wait until you've had the right time to make sure that you're confident in the product. Let's not vote. We have colleagues that need to get to another meeting. So why don't we just go into recess until 4 o'clock? And it may just take a few minutes for us to wind up, but I'm hoping that Representative Weiler will show up with that Ways and Means update. That would be worth listening to on a late Friday afternoon. So Representative Erf, your hand is up, sir.
Sorry.
Okay, so I'd like to put us into recess until 4 o'clock.
Mary, can I ask how to reach you?
Sure. You can reach me on 271-9294 in terms of phone.
Right,
And my email is mary.calise@dhhs.nh.gov.
all right. And how late will you be there?
I'm going to be here until you guys are done today.
Okay. Is there any chance I'll be able to reach you tomorrow?
You can reach me tomorrow. If it would be easier for me if we could plan a time to meet tomorrow, to
Okay.
either phone or what have you tomorrow, that would be easier for me than just leaving it open. But if that's what you needed, I could give you my cell phone number.
What time is good for you?
Probably 10:30. I don't know if that works for you.
Call me, or do you want me to call you?
Whatever's easier for you.
I'll call you at 10 if that works for you.
Okay.
Okay, what number should I call?
where I probably will need information from the computer, you could call the number I already gave you.
Okay, great. I will give you a call at 10 o'clock in the morning then.
Okay, sounds good.
I'll catch you tonight I'll try to call you right when we break up. It's what I'm gonna look for is, to rewrite this proposal of the A&M thing is kind of like if we start with a proposal for the first years, what we want to put in that first year, how much and which program. So that's something to
Okay,
think about now while we're in recess. Maybe that would be good.
okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Mr. Ripple, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
You're still recording. I don't know that we need to do that in a
Oh.
recess.
All right, sure, I'll stop.
All right. Thanks.
Yep.
Oh, since you can still hear me though, do you think you could just in a real slapdash way put the 3 or 4 other HB2 items I threw on your plate at midnight?
Sure.
Let's start the recording. You just did. We're back from 45-minute recess. Representative Weiler, welcome back to Division 3.
Thank you.
Could you tell me, sir, how much time you have for this meeting? We've got 5 items still, and I would just like to know how much time you can share with us so I can pace us.
Whatever you need.
Oh, okay.
The rest of you are more tired than I am from meeting all day.
Yeah. No, we've been thriving on this. So if you wouldn't mind thinking about what you can tell us about a Ways and Means update, we can come back to you in a bit. Unless you're ready to just speak extemporaneously.
Whenever you want, I can give you the short version or a longer version.
Let's hit the short version, because I among others, I think, have just been dying to hear the official update.
Okay, taking into account the tax cuts that are in HB2 and the new revenue they saw, and they met for days on this, they come up with 2022 with an additional $51.9 million. And then in 2023 with an additional $75.8 million, for a total of $127.7 million in this biennium over what the governor had.
So this is above the governor's initial estimate upon
governor's-
which he
upon which this revenue, upon which this budget was based. So now there's more revenue than what we started out with in the governor's estimate.
Anticipating the questions, I think folks would like to know what your thoughts are as Chair of Finance about, giving us a target. Because we have to hit a target Monday or Tuesday, I think, or we're gonna end up with a number one way or the other, and we're either gonna hit a target or not. What would you have us do, you think?
Well, I think based upon what we heard in our initial interviews with the departments and the bureaus and all that stuff, they're not even up to what was budgeted in 2021. So to go and build on that is, I think, going to be difficult for them. And so, I think we could save some money even on what the governor has, because if we can get a straight answer from them and see where the vacancies are and so on. And I don't know if you've discussed closing the Sununu Center yet, but.
Sir, we wanted to have that with you returning, because I came up with some language thinking I understood what you were thinking.
Yep.
And when I shared it with Mr. Ripple, he let me know that I was off target. And so what I'd like to do, sir, is we forestalled a vote on section 24, and there's 2 votes in there. There's an HB1 proposal and an HB2 proposal. This is the money that's related to the county cap.
Yep.
And so we'd like to give you some background on that, and that's one of the big ones that we should vote on today, I think.
I heard some of it over Harry's phone.
It's good. So if you could, Mr. Ripple, is it better to let's start with HB2, and then we'll go to HB1. I think that's logical.
Okay.
So I'll summarize this, Representative Irf, on your behalf, if that's okay, and then and that way you can correct me if I make mistakes. Okay. And I realize as I'm looking at your amendment, I don't know what we're doing with 14 through 18, so that didn't last very long. Would you tell us what 14 through 18 do again?
Well, let me just say what the 3 changes. So this is the county cap portion of HB2, Representative Weiler.
Yep.
And there are 3 parts to what used to be a single part. Previously, it only had the numbers in there, and we'll come to that bit. Now there are 3 components to it, and I've got to go back and remember what they are. So one of them changes the order in which the funding streams are applied. And there are 3 funding streams. There's the $5 million general fund piece that is in law. There's the general fund, the increase of the general fund that we put in to bring the county cap down. And then there's the county cap itself. So presently, the 2, as I understand it, and I think I had this right before, Karen, I think corrected me slightly in certain places, but I think the general gist of this is correct. Presently, the general funds are applied first, and the county funding, I'm sorry, presently, I said it backwards again. Presently, the county funding is spent first, and then the general funds are applied. The effect of that is that if the expenses are less than that total, essentially the state benefited from their general funds not being applied. So one of the points of this amendment is to change that ordering. So the county funds are applied first, and then the general fund streams are applied second. And part of this, and this was all in discussion with the department. In fact, there's probably still a person from the department here who could speak to this if need be. Related to the enhanced FMAP, which is not, how would the county funding, how would the county homes capture that? And it apparently is difficult to capture that directly. So this is in some sense a balancing out of that. So that's part one. Part two are the numbers. And what we did in the budget, which we've not yet gotten to, but what we're proposing to do in the budget is to increase the county cap from the FY21 base by 2% in the FY23 and by a further 2% in FY24. So those are the numbers that Kevin is showing us now.
Yep.
And then the third part of the amendment puts in an ongoing increase of 2% per year in the county cap going forward. Obviously, there are many effects of that, but one of the effects of that is that when the next biennium comes around and the HHS is doing their budgeting, their base budgeting will include the 2% increase to the county cap as opposed to the $5 million that they put in now as a default, no, I don't want to say placeholder, but as the default value, since that's what's in statute currently. Does that summarize it well enough for you, Mr. Chairman?
I think it does. And then you had another discussion, I think, on resequencing how different funds get spent down first. And currently the model is that the county funds get spent down first. So if they don't need to spend everything, the county is generally spent first anyways, but they're going to invert the sequence to where the county funds would be spent last, meaning that they may get some benefit if everything doesn't get spent and there's less spending than anticipated. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
The figures shown on the screen are in the original HB2, right?
The ones that are
120
I'm sorry, go ahead.
So on line 24, where it says 123 million point three,
Yeah.
that was the original number. And based on a couple of things that Representative Erf did, and he's going to show it to us on HB1, that number is now 129 million.
So that's the number the state is paying, not the counties.
Do that better when we go look at HB1, and,
okay.
and we'll do that before we vote on anything.
All right.
Could I just jump in with one thing there?
Yeah.
The numbers that you see that on lines 24 and 25, those original numbers of 123 and 126.9, those were for the current 2021 biennium. The governor's numbers for 22 were 148.9.
Ah, okay.
And in 23 were again 148.9. So this amendment brings those numbers down, and this would be the cap on county contributions. This wouldn't be the state cost.
So these are the revised numbers. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you for correcting me.
Should I bring up the Excel
Yeah,
sheet?
bring up HB. Yeah, the Excel, please. And then Representative Erf, do you want to explain these?
Sure. So first of all, there's a change to the budgeting, the expense side, the line number 504, which Kevin can highlight the $10 million. So it's on line 17 of the sheet. There you go. So based on an agreement with, or an understanding with the HHS, the original budgeting apparently was based on a number of, I think it was said 4,100 beds. And it seems that a better estimate is 3,900 beds at the beginning of FY20 or for FY 2022. So that resulted in a $10 million reduction in that 504 expense line for FY 2022. And then going forward, they do expect that as we come out of COVID, the bed count will go back, will start back up again as patients are readmitted to the nursing homes. So that reduction in the second year, 2023, is $5 million. And that has the effect, well, of course, that lowers the total costs of all the lines against which the county cap applies, which has the effect of on its own reducing the county cap. So then down below, when we get to the county cap number now, the private local funds, that has been decreased from the governor's number, the 143.9 million, to yield a 2% increase over FY 21 in the county cap. So it's getting it down to a value of 124 million roughly by decreasing the private local funds budgeted by about 19.5 million in FY 2022. And similarly in FY 2023, the county cap increases a further 2%, which is the 126.8 million, which causes the which is caused by a reduction in the county cap of 17 million from the budgeted number, and which increases the general funds by that same amount.
This will be good news for the meeting that Keith and I have to go to 1 o'clock on Monday, County State.
I hope so.
So I'm just trying to remember what was on the HB2 amendment, and I'm seeing 124.3
Right.
in
So-
FY 22. Does that need to be reflected in HB2? Because it seemed like it was a higher number on HB2.
Right. Because on HB2, the $5 million is included in there.
Oh.
In both FY 22 and 23. It's very confusing.
No, you just made it very simple. So Representative Irf walked us through this, and we didn't really have much interactive discussion around it. Do you have any questions or comments other than that this will be good news on Monday?
It'll be good news on Monday, and we talked about it through this week as well. I was well aware of what he wanted, what his intentions were. I just hadn't seen the exact numbers, but I know what he's doing here, and I see he's accomplished it. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. Representative Wallner, your hand is up.
Yes, thank you. Representative Irf, as you put all of this together, which thank you for doing all this work. The counties have been a part of this work, and they think this is a good way to go forward.
Yeah, that is my understanding. And in our discussions this morning, Karen, I'm pretty sure acknowledged that. Perhaps Mary can speak to that if need be. I was not involved in those conversations.
So I think we may have Kate Horgan on, who is, I forget the name of the county association, but if you want to.
Association of Counties.
You want to speak to her, Representative Wallner, with that question?
Sure, I would like to hear how how the counties are feeling about it, because it's a big part of county government.
Hi, yes, it's Kate Horgan. I'm the Executive Director of the New Hampshire Association of Counties. And Representative Wallner, we were very involved with the construction of this amendment, and we are very happy with where it is, and would encourage you all to adopt it into House Bill 2.
Great. Thank you, Kate.
Yep.
Thank you.
Are there other questions or conversation? So I would like us to entertain a vote on HB2 as amended for section, what is this, section 38? No, what is this, 24? So right now you're seeing how 30, wait a second, is that right?
24.
What's, what are we're voting on 24.
Yes, this amendment would replace section 24.
So I'll make that motion if you want me to. Do you want me to make it in conjunction with the budget part or two separate motions?
You have an idea on that, Mr. Ripple? It sounds like it can be in one vote.
I would actually recommend two separate motions since you're amending both bills.
Okay.
Okay.
So I would move that we accept amendment number 0896H to HB2, section number 24.
Second,
I'll second.
seconded. Is there discussion? Not seeing any discussion. Representative Weiler, Representative Bean's been filling in for you. Are you ready to take a roll call, sir, or do you want Representative Bean to continue?
I'll do it.
Please call a roll.
Representative Earth,
Yes.
Representative Weiler votes yes. Representative Bean,
Yes.
Representative Wallner,
Yes.
Representative Nordgren,
yes,
Representative Rogers,
yes,
Representative Edwards,
Yes.
7-0.
So on a 7-0 vote, the motion passes and we will replace section 24. So let's go back to the spreadsheet and Mr. Ripple, remind us of exactly what we're able to vote on and what we're not. Is this an official change request? Is this a
Yes.
spreadsheet that will become a change request? What's our status here?
You can consider this, even though it has no amendment number attached to it, you can consider this an official House Bill 1 amendment. So you could vote to make these changes to Accounting Unit 2152.
Is there a motion to change the? Go ahead.
I would make a motion to adopt the changes to County Unit 2152. Do I need to reference a number, Kevin, or something, or just as seen on the spreadsheet?
I think that motion is fine.
Second.
I'll second.
Seconds. Is there further discussion? Seeing none, Mr. Clerk, would you take a roll, please?
Representative Earth,
Yes.
Representative Weiler votes yes. Representative Bean,
Yes.
Representative Wallner,
Yes.
Representative Nordgren,
yes,
Representative Rogers,
yes,
Representative Edwards,
Yes.
7-0.
Thank you. 7-0, the motion passes. So we can go on to the next issue. Mr. Ripple, my memory is horrible. What did we do with section 38, the $200,000 that was for the ADT transfers? Did we
You
vote on that?
You haven't acted on that yet.
So is that ready for a vote?
It could be. I've received a new Excel spreadsheet from Mary Calise. Let me just find that because I don't have it up here.
And you already had an amendment to delete section 38, right?
Yes. So you have both sides of it. Let me just bring this up.
So in this case, let's look at the HB1 effect first.
Okay.
Please, do you want us, explain this, or would you like Mr. Ripple to? We'll go however you please, ma'am.
Kevin, I believe that's the original one.
Is this it does look like the
Yeah.
original, doesn't
It
it?
is the original one. Did I not send you the revised one?
I think you did. Let me just make sure I have the right one. Oh, actually, that was the one that I just opened was the most recent, actually. So I might suggest postponing this one until Monday.
Could still vote on HB2 though. And then over the weekend, you kind of know what we're doing, and it'd be easy to integrate our vote, I think.
Okay.
So let's go to the HB2 side of section 38, please.
Okay, and this would simply delete that section and the appropriation contained in it.
Right. So since this is so simple, can you pull up 38 so we can all remember? And Representative Weiler wasn't with us earlier, so he probably needs to see it again.
Yep, sure.
So Representative Weiler, we had Mr. David Wetters in here this morning, and we got more detail about this $200,000. It is an ongoing program. They did overlook including it in HB1. This 200,000 that is an HB2 would be good to earn a federal match. So this 200,000 gets matched by another 600,000. And so that's $800,000 that comes in on a revenue line if we accept the idea. And that $800,000 is going to a contractor who's maintaining basically the architecture that's sending out something called an admissions, discharges, and transfers message to receiving systems that have interfaces. And so it's an important aspect of the way that care is getting coordinated between the state and the communities and between communities. And so they have a plan to expand the number of clinical users in the communities with this money. And so the idea though is because it's an ongoing program, it was really in HB2 to make sure that even though they'd forgotten to budget it, that it got added back. And while adding it back, there was a recognition that some federal money would come along with it, 600,000. So the idea became in our discussion, well, why don't we just go ahead and delete section 38 because this is already ongoing operations. It's an ongoing program, and to bring it over into HB1 as a net increase. So that's what we discussed earlier. I think Ms. Calise, do you think I said that right? Do you want to change anything I said?
No, I think your description of that was accurate, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Representative Verf.
I still have a question as to whether they need $200,000 as requested in HB2 or $800,000 as which they get once they match it with the $600,000 of federal funds.
If I may, Representative, I was able to speak with Henry Lippman, the Director of Medicaid Services, and he did confirm that we do need the 200,000.
May I follow up?
Yes.
I guess my question is, what about the 600,000?
well, we can get federal match for the 200,000.
So I think what Representative Urf is asking, is
Sure.
this really an $800,000 project or a number less than that? I mean, just because we can get federal money, does the project demand the $800,000?
That is my understanding from the director, yes.
Okay.
Urf, do you have a follow-up?
Well, I would just, I mean, I don't know, but I would suggest that I'm a little bit confused by that because it seems like if that's the match ratio, we could do 50,000 general funds, get the 150 match and have the $200,000 that they want. That's really what my underlying question is. Thank you.
Right, and I think the answer back from Ms. Cleese is that it is in fact an $800,000 project, and the 200,000 is needed to get the match to support the total project, and that this money is going to a vendor who's maintaining the architecture and doing the updates and expansions.
Maybe she could just speak to confirm that they really were, once 200,000 was in HB2, they would have been able to match it without any further ado.
I would think that if the 200,000 was budgeted in House Bill 2 for us to add the federal, we would have had to go to fiscal committee.
That's right. So just show it here like this.
Okay. Thank you.
Do you have any questions, Representative Weiler? You're sort of seeing this detail for the first time.
Oh, I think Keith was right. We got to show it as 800,000, and that's the way it's shown now. So that's acceptable. It makes some shortcuts.
Do we have any other conversation around this? I don't think we're ready to vote on the spreadsheet because Mr. Ripple and Ms. Calise just want to make sure that we're voting on the right spreadsheet. But I think we can consider HB2.
Okay.
Do you have the back to the amendment that just simply deletes the section 38, right?
Yep.
Okay. So I would entertain a motion on this bill, this amendment.
I would make a motion to accept amendment number 0902H to amend HB2 to delete section 38 from HB2.
Second.
Seconded. Moved and seconded. Is there further conversation about this amendment? I'm not, do you have a question or conversation, Representative Wallner? I see you got your pen pointing at us.
No, I don't. Thank you.
All right, so Mr. Clerk, would you take a roll, please?
Representative Urf.
Yes.
Representative Weiler votes yes. Representative Bean.
Yes.
Representative Wallner.
Yes.
Representative Nordgren.
Yes,
Representative Rogers.
Yes,
Representative Edwards.
Yes.
7-0 is the vote.
Okay. All right, so before I move on to the next topic, Mr. Ripple, is it still the case that you and Ms. Cleese have a little more coordination to do?
I have the most recent spreadsheet now, so I think you should be able to vote on that.
All right, let's see it, please. Okay, and for your benefit, Representative Weiler, that $804,000 decrement in there for agency income.
Yep.
We asked about that earlier, and that was a small mistake in the draft process that Ms. Cleese recognized and is taking the opportunity to just fix it at the same time.
Very good.
Chairman
Yes,
Edward? Yes.
go
So,
ahead.
so far this afternoon, I've noticed that we've been adding back expenses to back appropriations to the budget. This is the second one. I mean, obviously, we just did the county one. I assume these are coming out of the found $127.7 million that the chairman just spoke to us about. And I guess the hesitancy I have about voting even for this 200, and I did vote for the county cap because I obviously have been concerned about that right along, but my hesitancy is, here's $200,000 and it's going to get it's getting the first decision of House Bill 1, how to spend this found money. And I mean, I guess I need to stack it up against something else that might cost $200 million that someone might bring forward. And that's sort of the dilemma I'm in. We're adding back money into the budget, but we're doing them in isolation. I haven't seen House Bill 1. I haven't seen what we're doing as a total in House Bill 1. Am I making myself clear? Is that?
Oh, I think so. Subsystem optimization was the word they taught me in grad school.
Wow, I've never heard that word before.
Yeah, well, that's where I went to grad school.
Okay.
So if you would be more comfortable holding off the vote on this HB1 change until Monday, I think I would be fine with that. Our goal is to lay out a view of HB1 of the amendment. And
I would appreciate that because I would like to see the full picture before I've already voted for the county cap. So I would like to see a whole picture of how much money we are adding back into the budget and where.
I think that's a reasonable request, and I can hold off a vote until Monday. Is there any other discussion on that?
Yes.
Okay, did you say something, Representative Weiler? Did you say yes, I think?
Yes, I have further discussion.
Okay, what would, go for it.
Okay, she's saying we're adding this back in of 127 million. Have you decided earlier in the day to go with what the governor had in this budget, or have you still working from Representative Irf's working papers where we cut quite a bit of money out of the HB1 HHS budget? Have you added that all back? Everything that Representative Irf's thing took out? If that's the case, then we are adding new money. But if we're just still working from where we started with a big deduction, then we're just still adding back money that we had taken away early.
Yeah, so I think technically the correct answer is that until we got a Ways and Means update, we were on the same trajectory that we've been on for the last week or two.
Okay.
Assuming the Ways and Means estimate was the gold standard.
Well, I was misled when she said we're adding back money from 127 million, because we still have started from a different place than the governor was. Unless I'm mistaken.
Yes, sir. To be fair, we really I hadn't clarified that in the morning. We've just been holding off for a Ways and Means update, and
Okay.
I've just assumed that until we know otherwise, we continue to do what we're doing unless we know better.
There was also some thought at the meeting I was at of speeding up some tax cuts and using some of the money that way. So, we'd be cautious about adding anything back. Some of the things we've deducted already, and Representative Irf found places in the budget that the governor had spent less than what the agency had put in. So until we add it all up, I don't know if we're adding more money to this budget as it came to us or still spending less. Thank you.
Yes, sir. And while you're away, one of the things that we did and we voted on, and turned out to be 6-0, so I didn't mind voting in your absence, was we agreed that the department would use the same enhanced FMAP process or estimates that they had used for the primary Medicaid account. And by using that same assumption on other Medicaid accounts, it added back, or it was basically found money of about 12.5 million. So, so even on the same trajectory we were on with Ways and Means, earlier today, we did find 12.5 million from that FMAP vote.
Good.
But
Thank you.
but I think we're all saying the same thing, that we shouldn't vote on this one item until we see the whole picture on Monday. Representative Wallner, I didn't mean to
Yes.
interrupt you. Did you?
No, that was exactly my point. We have already done that with the county cap. But like you said, we did have $12 million additional this morning. So, that comes into the picture too. Maybe that helps balance out part of the county cap.
All right. Okay, so I think we have 3 more things to talk about. I would like to talk about the Sununu Youth Center and some potential language.
Has a question.
I'd like to talk about, pardon me? Oh,
Representative,
lots of hands. Woo! Representative Nordgren. Question or comment?
Thank you very much. I guess my question, I tend to be very organized and like to know the plan. So I'm just wondering if you could maybe tell us what your plan is for Monday and Tuesday, so we sort of have an idea of your agenda both days. That would be helpful. Thanks.
Okay, so just to make sure that we're coming off of the same base, do you recall receiving my copies of the Division III March Madness, the
Yeah.
calendar that shows a plan for Monday? And
I didn't see the second page. I only saw through this week.
okay, the first edition had everything. I've sent some images of SNPs twice. But in any case, Monday, to answer your question, is it's on the House calendar as a work session. I've got it down that we're going to exec. I'm not sure if that's the right term for us, but we're going to exec HB 254, HB 600. I've got section 19 hanging out there, and we're going to have to add section 34 to a discussion and maybe a vote on Monday. So sections 19 and 34 are still outstanding. I think we're going to have an HB1 discussion and votes, and we're going to have an HB2 discussion and votes. So the idea on the HB1 and 2, and this is where I don't want to overcommit Mr. Ripple, and I also want to admit I'm not exactly sure what this thing is going to look like, but I'm thinking that we may have something to review on Monday that looks like Division III's HB1 amendment proposal, and that we can review it and look at the big picture and see where all the moving parts are. That's for Monday. And then I have intentionally left Tuesday and Wednesday unscheduled in case we have crises and we need to just push it, keep working for another day or two. But if everything goes great, we could potentially be done Monday or Tuesday. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you. And maybe if Representative Weiler has any updates on when he's gonna do the budget briefing, that would be helpful.
That determine, Representative Weiler, how we're going to do the budget briefing to the House?
Thank you for the question. Preliminarily with the speaker, we're having the 3-day session on 7, 8, and 9. He's got to make some arrangements, but we tentatively talked about the 6th, the Tuesday before the 3-day session. So it'd be 4-day, 4-day session.
So,
If we do that.
so it wouldn't be a Zoom, it would be an in-person briefing on the
Yes.
6th
Yeah,
at the sports arena,
very likely, yes.
really?
Well, I don't think they can do a 400-person Zoom yet.
No, I don't think, I think they can. Excuse me.
Well,
So that's outside of our division's
yeah,
responsibility.
well,
So-
however he does it, it'll likely to be the 6th.
So Representative Wallner, your hand is up.
Well, I also wanted to ask Chairman Weiler if, what day he thinks we will exec, the full committee will exec House Bill 1 and 2.
The 25th of March, which is a Thursday.
Okay,
And I better get those to Janet so they can make sure I make the calendar.
Well,
Representative
isn't-
Irf, your hand is up. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Representative Wallner.
isn't the 25th of March next week?
Yeah,
Yes,
So
Uh,
wouldn't we have had to be in this week's calendar?
trying to remember if I told her to put it in there.
I read the
You got this
calendar
week's
last night and
calendar?
I didn't see it. I didn't see it in there. That's why I was asking.
Uh-oh. Okay,
So it would be in House Calendar 16, which is the most current.
yeah,
if
I
it's in
printed that
there,
off
it's in
last
there.
night, but I didn't think to look through it. All right,
So if you can, Mr. Ripple, since you're so facile, would you bring up House Calendar 16 and take us to March 25th? 25th?
I can do that. I'll pull it up now. I did confirm, I looked through it last night and I did not see a full committee exec session schedule, but I'll pull it up now. There are currently Division 2 and 3 work sessions scheduled, but no full committee exec.
sorry about that. I guess at the time I wasn't sure if everybody'd be finished. I think Division 1 is finished, but the other two hadn't given me definite answers, so.
My apology. I've been trying to say the 24th of March is when our internal drop dead date.
Kevin, what date were you on?
I was, let me bring it back up.
March
Oh, there's a new
25th.
calendar out, isn't there? Never mind. I'm
Yep,
sorry.
that's the most recent one that just came out last night.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I could put it in the calendar on next Wednesday, and I could have Friday. I could have Friday, the 26th. Because as you note, the calendar will show the Friday.
Yeah, that's right. It will.
All right, so if we can agree on the 26th. We agree in this division, then I get the other divisions to agree as well, because I see Karen had something on the 25th. So,
I can tell you that I'm thinking our work will be done by then, sir.
all right, so let's say we'll exec on the 26th, which is a deadline, and I can still make it into the calendar for next
Yeah.
Thursday. It'll come out with next Friday's date. I will tell Janet before I leave here.
Representative Waller, your hand is still up. Do you have
Oh,
a
I'm
follow-up?
sorry. Thank you. Sorry.
Representative Erf.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to refresh my memory regarding Representative Walner's comments about what we're voting on. We already have voted on 5 of the different accounts, have a 4 or 5 or some number a couple days ago, or are we still waiting to vote on those coming up? I think it was like disability and Medicare and
Just talking
child
about
Medicare.
full exec session on Friday the
Th-
26th.
Let me try to answer that. When we voted of the 51 million add back for the Medicaid and then, 17 million for something else, those were to build our increment list to where that wasn't votes to definitively put it in HB1.
No, that's fine. So we did, I just want to recollect that we did vote on that, right? That's all.
We had votes, and from my perspective, what we were voting on was our increment list, which also works as a decrement list if we were to take a cut. So that's what I thought we were doing. Okay, so I still would like to introduce a conversation on the Sununu Youth Center, a personnel HB2, and just flash the forensic hospital write-up to make that's in your inbox. But I wanted to just get synced on what I think we're doing with that. So Mr. Ripple, could you show the intent language I put together on SYSC, please?
Sure.
So Representative Weiler, we were talking, gosh, I don't know when that was. Was that just yesterday maybe? And what I thought I heard you tell me was that we wanted to put something into HB2 dealing with our thoughts around closure of the Sununu Center. So I drafted this language, which subsequently I ended up missing that meeting with Mr. DeJoy due to my car clock being wrong. But so Mr. Ripple has talked to Mr. DeJoy. Mr. DeJoy, I think, was under the impression that our language coming out of our division would be that we would shut the Sununu Center at the end of this by the end of this biennium. And when I had considered this language, that just felt to me too quick. So that's why I wrote it this way. And I don't know that we have language to review from Mr. DeJoy today, but I thought I would at least show you what I had been thinking. And then you can tell me, forget this and we're going to go a different way, or you kind of like some of this. And this is the first, well, although I emailed it to a copy to you, this is probably the first time you've had a chance to actually look at it. Can you see it, sir? Representative Weiler, are you there? Can anyone hear me?
Yeah, I had it muted, sorry.
Oh, okay.
Sorry. My discussion with him was, we think we can give him 1 year. So it would be at the end of 2022, which would be June 30th, 2022, rather than 2025. And, and because it just keeps dragging on and we look at the fiscal report, we looked at that earlier today. There's an audit out, which doesn't speak very well about the Sununu Center. It's been released. Representative Walner, I think, has a copy, and I probably you do as well, of the audit. And that, along with what I read in the Alvarez and Marshall report, it's just going downhill fast over there. And so John DeJoy felt that there was a possibility of getting it done within a year. Once we pass this budget, they've got a year. And he says most of the, one of his ideas was most of the people there can go into alternative. There's some that need a little more security than others, and that can be done in a form that's done over in Orford at the Beckett company or Beckett organization. And then if we put out a bid to the county jails, most of which have room and sometimes an extra wing almost, that the 1 or 2 or 3 murderers that we can't let out can be isolated in a jail. And, you know, there's enough distant learning now and so on. They can be given education that way. And, you know, people can visit them as psychiatrists or whatever. But it is likely these people will age out of the juvenile system and go right into the mature prison. So I don't think there's any thought to let them out, so we don't need to go to any halfway house for them. But there's so few of them that if we put out a RFP to all the counties, I'm sure one or two would bid on it. I know Rockingham County has extra space, so that would be the way to deal with the handful of murderers. And the rest could be dealt with less thing. And then we would close the place down. And there's some thought to either put it on the market or repurpose it somehow. And one of the things he mentioned was in the state of New York, Cuomo went to a prison that was set up for youthful offenders. There were 200 employees. There was this special prison with no one in it. And again, he was more worried about employing the 200 people elsewhere in the state government. So another thing that was brought up by Mr. DeJoy is that if Biden is out to forgive monies that the federal government put up to build youthful prisons, with the idea that we don't want to keep the youthful prisons going just so they don't have to pay us back. We'll forgive the debt, which would be a big help if we didn't have to pay 10 million back if we close it and stop using it, or we try to repurpose it, or we try to sell it. So that's a possibility as well, he felt strongly. So he thought we could save 10 million within this biennium if we have it closed by the second year of the biennium. And with the talk we had, I'm sorry you missed it, it went on for about an hour. It made a lot of sense. And he had numbers and he showed me a spreadsheet. So I was hoping that he would get together with Mr. Ripple and we'd have an amendment. Has he contacted you, Mr. Ripple?
Yes, he has. I heard from him this morning and he sent me a few, I think it would be multiple amendments, and he sent me a few of those sections.
Okay. So we could put them in my name and present them. Because I've discussed it with him and told him that I approved them, and if he would send you the language, which I looked at, that I would be happy to do it.
Okay, so one task is the language you see now, this doesn't appear to provide any usefulness, that we should just get rid of this language?
Yeah, it would be like Mr. Ripple said, it'd be multiple amendments.
So I was hoping that somewhere in there we could say that the grounds will be repurposed to provide an ongoing tax stream to the city and state, and potentially a one-time revenue stream as well.
Well, I think that's a good intent, but I don't know. Yeah, we could put it in there. It's like 10 years ago, I think Representative Wallner and Representative Nordigan probably remember 10, it was maybe 15 years ago, we put Laconia in with similar language. And here we are still owning it. So I guess it doesn't matter if we have it in there, it doesn't.
So it doesn't matter. Okay, so Mr. Ripple, we can just trash this language.
So Representative Edwards,
Yes.
this is Mary Jane. I certainly agree with the things that Chairman Weiler just spoke about. I've been here for a long time, and we've been working on this Sununu issue for a number of years. And it feels like we're going to have to set some pretty aggressive deadlines, or it's not going to happen.
Yep.
It just drags. And I think it's finally going to take someone saying, this is the date, we've got to work towards this date, and we have to have it done. I guess the last several times, I mean, I've been on a number of bills, amendments, everything imaginable. And I guess in some ways, I guess we were just sort of like too nice because we never actually said, this is the deadline.
Right.
And I think that time has come.
Yeah. So just so you know, I think experience is the best teacher. And so I appreciate you sharing your experience with me on that. The reason I was hesitant to go with a quicker timeline is because I've heard a lot of concepts from some really smart, dedicated people on what's going to happen to the kids that don't need to be in the Sununu Center. If we, like, for example, if we were to agree to HB 254, there's a demographic, a set of demographics of people that would no longer go to the Sununu Center, they would go somewhere else. Well, so far, the somewhere else sounds like concepts that people haven't turned into capabilities yet. And I haven't seen a plan to go from concepts to capabilities. And so I'm just reluctant as a planner to say, okay, all the kids out of the Sununu Center on this date without first knowing that there's a place for them to go. And if it's just one of those chicken and egg things where there's never going to be a place for them to go until we say they got to leave, then okay, I can buy that. But that's why I went with a later date.
I do think that the system of care that we started developing in the last budget is already working on providing a number of those kinds of places and a number of programs. I mean, there's a lot of things going on around the country around keeping kids at home and being able to send services into families and trying to keep kids in the place where we probably all agree they should be, and helping families take care of their own kids. So there's all kinds of things going on. And I think since our numbers have gotten so low, we should be able to put this together in a year and have a pretty good plan. And I think that I saw Senator John DeJoyce, he was a representative at one point. I saw his suggestion about the idea of the county jails for those very serious offenders. The youth would have to be separated, obviously, from the adults. But that was a suggestion I had not seen before, and I think it was really had some merit and would be an interesting one, because those young people were tried as adults and will definitely go into the adult system when they turn 18. And I think Kathy can probably tell me if I'm right or not. I'm pretty sure I am.
Because she's an attorney.
Right. Well, she used to work in this. She works in this field for a long time.
So, Representative Nordgren.
Thank you very much. And I was thinking, when we have this discussion, we should make sure that Maura, the child advocate, is invited so she can come and participate. I don't know what the discussions have been with her, but I think it'd be important to include her when we have that on our agenda. Thanks.
I agree. Okay, so let's talk practicality here for a second. Mr. Ripple, given where you're at and what you have, when do you see the best case and worst case for having HB2 language for us to look at?
Well, I have informal language that's been sent to me by Mr. DeJoy, and he's about to send me 3 more pieces. I could share that with the committee if you all would like me to. As far as formal amendments from OLS, I think we would end up giving it to them on Monday morning and hopefully would have everything back by Monday afternoon.
I'll defer to Representative Weiler on the sharing of Mr. DeJoy's documents.
I welcome it.
Does that mean that we should put it on the LBA website? Because I think that's a related question.
Well, I don't, until it's in formal language, I don't know, it's just a preliminary thing. Once we have a formal amendment, would be more appropriate. But, we could
Do you
put it up
agree?
now for us to look at.
Do you agree with that, Mr. Ripple, based on your last conversation with Jim Ciani?
I think it will be okay, since the content of these amendments haven't been discussed publicly or anything like that. I think it would be fine to wait until we have a formal OLS amendment.
All right, thank you. So the game plan is to send them to the committee, and you'll start sending them off to OLS, and hopefully we could know by Monday afternoon. That's the best case. What do you think the worst case is? Tuesday?
Well, I think if you're in agreement as to the language you want on Monday morning, then the worst case scenario probably is Tuesday.
I wonder if they're working late.
Let's do SYSC first thing that we do. I had put HB 254 as the first thing. Maybe we need to do 254 first, and then do SYSC. Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
Mr. Chair, 254 actually will have a lot, need to be, the language there is going to need to probably, I assume, would have to be incorporated into the Sununu amendment.
Right.
That's an integral part of making this work. So
I think you're right. And I think when I sat down last night trying to do that myself, I didn't know how to do that. So that's why I wrote that little intent paragraph instead. But so Mr. Ripple, are you also thinking that the key sections of the 254 language need to find themselves into this HB2 language?
I don't know that they need to. They certainly could, and I believe that may be part of the language that Mr. DeJoy is going to provide.
All right, Mr. Representative Weiler.
One of his suggestions was incorporate 254 and HB2, the language of it, and then retain 254. So if something happens in the process, we'd still have that option to do something with 254. But I think if we incorporate it in HB2, then when we come to the time for retained bills, we probably won't have to do anything with it, assuming everything works the way we hope. And I think it's all of us support it.
So I think at this point we have a game plan. Are there any questions about what we're trying to do over the weekend on Monday? I'm not seeing any. So there are 2 other topics, and I think we just need another 15 minutes and we can adjourn. It's been a long day. Can you show the personnel paragraph that you've drafted at my request?
Sure.
Why don't you talk us through this, or maybe people just can read it for 30 seconds and then you can talk us through.
Okay.
And I think most of you have read it, and I just would want to immediately just point out that the 100 and the 10 million are still in flux. They're TBDs. I didn't know what kind of guidance we were going to get coming down. So this was an area where I thought we might have a shock absorber depending on what we heard. So I think all the language here is pretty useful, but the 100 and the 10 million I think are still TBD. Do you want to speak to this now, Mr. Ripple, or did I just steal your thunder?
No, I think you summarized everything. It's a $10 million back of the budget reduction that's specific to personnel costs. The 100 full-time positions language is just to explain how the $10 million was arrived at. On average, positions in the department cost about $50,000 in general funds between salary and benefits. It's an approximate number, but I believe it is pretty close. And lastly, there's a fiscal reporting requirement contained in here as well. So the department would need to come into fiscal and identify specifically where they've made those reductions.
So now that I've just heard you say that, my question is this, is there any sort of, I hate to use the word enforcement in this context, but that's kind of where I'm going, is what if they don't report? What happens? They will?
Well,
I don't need to worry about that?
it's not only a reporting requirement, they also need to provide to DAS the exact accounting units and class lines to be reduced. And this section will have the force of law, so it will require them to reduce personnel related class lines by this $10 million. So everything contained in here has the force of law. So I'm assuming the department will do it.
Is there conversation, questions? I'm not seeing any.
Yeah.
You have a question, Representative Weiler?
Just a comment that this is not untypical of what all of us have seen before dealing with HHS. More than any other department, this is a typical thing. When we get done with the other Sununu Youth Center, it may incorporate retraining and so on, and relocation even for the employees. But that will be over and above this. And that will only happen when the Sununu Center is closed, because I think they've got about 200 employees there. And many of them may want to go to work in one of like the Glen Hill or the New Hampshire Hospital, where they're having trouble finding people. So, and if the needed retraining or go back to school, we might even work out something in the budget of closing the Sununu Youth Center. I think there is something in the amendment to do all of that. So, but this is not untypical of what we've done in the past with HHS and putting it back on the budget cut. So they know how to deal with it. Thank you.
Yes, sir. I think as far as numbers, as I recall, the Sununu Center, for some reason, 116 is in my head of how many authorizations they have. And I could have sworn that whenever they talked to us, they were talking about 96 people. So
I think you're right. I think it's in the 90s.
Any other questions, comments? So I think we'll go to another place then. If you would pull up my language on the forensic hospital, and then Representative Rogers, I'm going to ask you to repeat for the public and the committee your two observations, please. First, I sent this late last night, and it was, I don't know if everyone's had a chance to look at it. I've gotten confirmation from Representative Rogers and Representative Wallner that they've both looked at it. And then Representative Rogers, do you want to make your observations?
Sure. Let me just go back and look at them again. Basically,
the first one was related to the first bullet about you prefer different language to the town or municipal.
Well, I just said that on the municipalities, and this comes from experience being from Concord and having served on the council, is that instead of just saying municipal involvement, I would like to say that I would like to say that it would be coordination. So that instead of just having them talk to someone in the Public Works Department or something like that, that they actually do talk to the city or town manager or the chairman of the select board or the mayor, that kind of thing, so that they're talking to somebody in charge of the municipality and not talking to just one department head. So quite often, if you talk to a department head or a department employee, it doesn't work its way up to the mayor and the city council. And so you don't get the policy leaders there talking about it. So I just wanted to make that language, maybe say coordination or something, or direct them towards the policy leaders. And then the other thing is I was just wondering if we could also ask for operational costs or an operational plan, because where the project isn't going to go into operation in the time frame of this. I think that one of the questions we all had this time around and 2 years ago was what is the operational plan of this facility and what are the costs going to be? Because that's obviously something that while it not going into effect now, it will be in effect in the next budget, and is obviously a concern we have, because you don't operate a 60-bed facility with no people. And if we have one amendment someplace else in House Bill 1 or 2 that's going to be cutting 100 staff people, and then we have this, how many staff people are we adding to in fact make this operational? I think we should have the right hand knowing what the left hand is doing. So I would like us to have something in here asking for when the various information is gathered, that at least we are shown that they're thinking about an operational plan for this.
May I respond?
Sure.
Okay, so once again, I find ourselves in violent agreement with one another.
Oh my God.
The first
Violent
bullet,
agreement.
the first bullet was my late night attempt to get the coordination in that you had mentioned. And so I think that first bullet's just begging to be edited to your liking. And then the last bullet on cost estimates will be included with the target being plus or minus 15%. That sort of was, again, my attempt to get at what you're saying, that we need to understand what the annual operational costs are going to be. So that's another place where I think your thoughts find a foothold, and we can just find the right words there.
I do have to say that I did start out my email and return to you saying that I thought it was a superb plan, and I was thanking you for doing it. So I do.
You did do that. I was thinking about making you say it publicly, but
well, I should have. So I'm saying it now. I do think it's a great start plan, and thank you very much for doing it.
You're very welcome. So Representative Weiler, you had your hand up, and it's down now. Did you have a question or a comment?
Well, I was going to ask Representative Rogers. I'm pretty sure Concord has cities water and city sewer. Is that true?
Yes, it is.
So that would be a big deal to be adding a 60-bed hospital where there's nothing now, unless they knock down some other buildings. But I'm sure that's might have to go into the planning. There might have to be additions or a bigger water main or something like that. So that's the kind of thing why you got to get involved with municipality, because you just can't throw it up and then discover you don't have enough water or enough sewage. So
Right.
those are important considerations to be looked at and get some idea of the flow and so on. So I just, I don't understand what violent agreement is, but
it just means we couldn't agree any more completely.
all right. But I guess I'm also in violent agreement.
Okay, and then Representative Wallner had emailed me separately as well, and I think one of the takeaways I got from her email was an opportunity to remind everyone that we're anticipating getting a hearing together on the 12th of April, and with the point of talking about this issue. And so if we kind of like where this is going, then I would start to encourage people to think about who we might want to invite to get them to our hearing on the 12th of April. So, and who knows, after we hear from people, we might just throw this out and start fresh, but all right, Representative Wallner, did you have more to add from your email comments?
No, not really. I just, I'm just a little, I'm a little concerned about some of this. I want to be sure that we hear from, as you know, this is sort of something I always go to, but I want to be sure we hear from people other than the department. I mean, I think we pretty much know where the department stands. I mean, they want a 60-bed facility. I'm really wanting to know what would be a right size facility. And I'm not sure that the department is the place where I'm going to find that out. So, you know, I think this is fine. But I really want to hear what others think. I mean, remember 2 years ago, this was a big issue in the budget, and we ended up in the budget passing something that said a 25-bed facility.
Yes, ma'am.
And then in the Senate, 156 also says a 25-bed facility. So I'm concerned about jumping right to the 60-bed facility, and that we know that's what the department wants at this point. I'd like to hear other opinions. So I really need more input than just the department. So thank you.
So I would just want to draw your attention to the places in this document where it's I've used the phrase 60 beds. And all of them are qualified with the term not to exceed 60 beds. And we're asking them to do research and report. And so part of that, I've tried to anticipate that maybe if they really think about it and start coming up with costs and coming up with project plans, maybe they'll want to come back and say, 25 was the right number. So that's why I put a not to exceed into this document for the very point you made.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Representative Nordgren, you had your hand up for a moment.
I do. So I was just going to suggest, I don't know where the Senate will be in their discussions, if they've already will have started looking at the budget, but it might be good to have somebody from the Senate Finance Committee come and join us for the 12th. If anyone's available, that would be helpful.
Yes, and then I think if sort of to that point, if I've talked about the distribution of the report, I made it up. I said on the House and Senate respectively, you're going to need the report to go to HHS, EA, Public Works, and Finance. And I think those are the same committees that we should try to involve on the 12th. So, are there any other comments or questions? Take a look at it. The whole point of this document was really just to try to capture what I thought I was hearing people saying and thinking, and so that we have some way to focus what we're doing on the 12th. So there's really no action on this other than if you think about it some more and you want to send me some replacement words or some additional words, I'd love that. I want to come back to just one more thing. Mr. Ripple, what did we do with section 19? That was the Laconia School. Was that in our purview or out?
Sorry, I was muted. That was assigned to Division 1.
Okay, it's out. All right, so I think we did a lot today. Did we forget something, Mr. Ripple, on the?
I don't think so. You've done everything that I had.
Okay, well, it's been a long day and people have been really great. So thank you. I think had people not been so great, we'd be here till 10 o'clock. So enjoy your Friday evening. Are there any parting comments for the good of the committee?
Sorry I missed so much.
No, you were busy. You brought in some great information. Well, okay, so on that point, will we be getting something in writing or, and I forget what you said about whether or not we were going to have a target as a division.
It doesn't look like it now with this extra revenue.
Okay. So, all right. Well, thank you. Thank
could
you.
I
Go
ask-
ahead. Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
Well, what does that mean? I realize you probably won't need to make the reductions that you had to previously because you filled in the hole that was in between the Ways and Means estimates and the governor's estimates. But will Division 3 be given a number of new money that they can add to the budget? The governor gave us that list of his other priorities, or are we not using the funds that way?
Well, from the chairman of the committee, yes, you won't be given a target, but I still think that from our interviews with the department heads and bureau chiefs and all those, that they cannot get up to what the 2021 budget was. So rather than have them have a lot of money that probably is just going to not be spent and will lapse, because I think from something the governor said the other day, the lapses which were expected to be 76 million from this fiscal year may well go to 150 million. So, and a lot of that is from HHS because they just couldn't expand that fast. So rather than have them struggle to expand in these new areas, I support this back of the budget cut because, and you know, we can restore much of it, but if we knew more of the vacancies and where they're having trouble filling agencies and bureaus, I would cut back the money to those places rather than have them struggle to find people and then have it only half filled and still not doing half the job they don't have enough people to do. So I'd rather still stifle it a little bit from the growth, because I think the growth has naturally been stifled just because of the lack of available people. So rather than tie up money there that will likely lapse, I would still like to see us reduce that budget a little bit, but not as much as we originally started out. So if we all look at there and see what the departments are and go back to Representative Earth's figures, we might still find agencies that don't need as much money as was put in there, because I don't think they can spend it. And the ones that have been newly created without statutory authority, I'm a little bit wary of them just deciding what they think they need and just putting money in it rather than looking for statutory authority. So I was not impressed with that. I guess they called it the health equity, which would have been refugee. I didn't think we had that big a refugee population that we needed to spend so much money on it. So those are things I'm wondering about. But, you know, anything you know when we get together and discuss it, great. But you would probably find some of the things I found that, you know, that they couldn't expand as fast at 24% in 1 year. So it's almost wasteful spending.
So a question I would have then, if we're not going to be spending more in the budget and filling in up to the governor's level or doing some of the other things that he brought in as his priorities, if we're not going to be doing that, but we have this new revenue, when will we see how that new revenue would be proposed to be used?
Well, that's some of the discussions we had today with the speaker and the majority leader. And, you know, what can we do to convince people to pass this budget? And, you know, most of them are not impressed with these new programs at HHS. They're more impressed with where can we do to help property taxes and that sort of thing. So some of the money may go that way, but we've got to figure out what's going to appeal to the widest audience that they would vote for a budget. And what are the kind of things that you and I have seen through the years that people are demanding? Like I went and looked at revenue sharing and realized that was very outdated legislation. It has been suspended every year since '99. And most of the revenue sharing stuff was written in 1970. And it talked about taxes, sharing portions of taxes like that, taxes that have long since disappeared. You know, things like stock, you know, where you'd put taxes on the stuff in stock and trade and that kind of thing. I read these taxes that were going to be shared in 1970 and none of them exist anymore. So I thought, I guess I gave up on that thought because the revenue sharing apparatus is gone. However, there is some thought about going, they've also suspended, remember we passed laws saying they were to get 40% of meals and rooms. And that's also been suspended in several budgets. So maybe we would be able to put more money into the meals and rooms taxes that would go back to towns and hopefully would directly affect property taxes. So, and that'd be popular, I think, with everybody. So those are the things that were discussed that might help pass a budget rather than just keep building more health and human services that we're not certain are called for. One of the things that we did hear the most talk about in our talks and some of it in the public hearing, transitional housing. We want transitional housing for people coming out of drug treatment, transitional housing for people coming out of the behavioral health hospitals, transitional housing for people coming out of prison. So, you know, and none of this has been addressed very seriously. And of course, it would have to be somewhere where nobody would say, not in my backyard. One of the things I brought up was, you know, some of these shuttered shopping centers, if they're on a busy Wayfair where the people could walk to a job and you turn some of the portions of it into housing, then maybe that would work perfectly, or maybe they'd be nearby enough other places to get jobs. So those are some of the things I was thinking of. And right away, the governor said, oh, no, not shopping centers, but hey, I think we've all seen some shuttered shopping centers around. They can be repurposed, but anyway, something just some things we all thought about, kicked around. But anyway, I hope we all do the same.
Great. Thank you. And so will we see some of these proposals on Monday or Tuesday?
I don't think they're fleshed out that far yet. And I'm going to have a meeting again, I think on Tuesday, because the Ways and Means are going to come back with some more numbers. And so I'll get together.
Representative Weiler, it's my understanding that we really need as Division 3 to be moving towards a vote, and that I was hoping, I know it was an aspirational hope, but I was hoping that we could actually vote on an HB1 amendment on Monday if Mr. Ripple can pull a rabbit out of his hat and get it produced. And he can't even start until this weekend. So his Sunday has been claimed.
Yep, this is Palm Sunday.
So are we, I just want to verify the Division 3's plan to have discussions on our version of the HB1, that we're on track for doing it Monday is my goal.
Representative Nordgren has her hand up.
Yes, sir. I was just looking for an acknowledgement of my question. We're on track for Monday.
I would support it, yes.
Okay. So Representative Nordgren, your hand is up.
Yeah, a couple things. I would just remind people that the last budget put a lot of money into education funding, which was a huge tax cut for many communities, and that's not included in the governor's budget. I would also comment that I don't consider this last year a normal year for spending or anything else with COVID. I think obviously Health and Human Services did lapse money, but I think some of it could have had to do with the fact that their staff was otherwise occupied with the crisis. And then I wanted a little more clarification on what the Democrats on the committee could expect on Monday. Are you just going to bring in a budget for us to look at, already prepared, or what do you plan to present us on Monday?
So I think that's a great question, and it's an opportunity to ask me, or for me to ask you what the standard is. How was the Democrat proposal presented to the Republicans 2 years ago? Because if that's the standard, please tell me so that I can meet that standard.
Well, we already did meet that standard. I mean, so we went line by line, and so we ended up there. It wasn't a Democratic budget. We did it all together, and we presented it to the full Finance Committee. So this wasn't just a Democrat budget and we gave it to the Republicans. We worked every day, line by line, every page of the budget. In the end, we agreed or we didn't agree, but then that Division 3 was brought to the full Committee of Finance. So we've already not taken all those steps. So I guess that's what I'm trying to clarify on what to expect on Monday.
I think what we're going to present to you on Monday is a draft amendment, or maybe an actual amendment to HB 1 for discussion. Possibly a vote.
I would hope that we would have an overnight to look at it.
That's probably a reasonable request, and depending on how things go, you know, I'm trying to schedule things really intensely today and on Monday, and we've left Tuesday and Wednesday blank. So we do have a little bit of flex in here, but I'm trying to keep it on us on an aspirational schedule, and then we've got some slack built in if we need it. Representative Wallner?
Yes, this is sort of a question for Kevin, and maybe he won't want to answer it or doesn't know how it would work. But if this is going to be an amendment that changes House Bill 1, I mean, I assume it will add some funds in some lines and take away some funds in other lines, and it's up and downs. Will we be seeing an amendment that is the entire House Bill 1? I mean, the whole document with all the ups and downs?
I wouldn't ask him to do that. I think we're focused on the Division 3 mission of DHHS and the Veterans Home. I don't know that on Monday we need to be bringing in Division 1 and Division 2. That sounds odd to me.
No, did I say something about Division 1 and 2? I'm sorry.
I may have misunderstood you. My apologies.
What I'm really trying to understand is what kind of a document will we receive? Will it be the Division 3, which is Health and Human Services? Will it be that budget with lines that go up or down? I mean, because if you take money away from some general funds, you're going to lose some federal funds. I mean, I don't know what you have in mind. And so will we see the whole Health and Human Service budget with adjustments on different lines? Or will we just see some sort of a piece of paper that outlines where additions and subtractions are happening? Does Mr. Ripple, do you understand what I'm trying to say?
I do understand, and I think it depends on what the final proposal ends up being. So I'm not sure what it'll look like at this point.
Okay, so we could end up with a very large document. Is that right? I mean, if it's the whole budget with all the adjustments.
That potential exists, but I think it really depends on what's hashed out over the weekend. I'm still not sure at this point what that will be or what the resulting amendments will look like.
I think we've eliminated 100 pages through all federally funded or all other funded. So that's almost half the pages in that section. There's a couple hundred pages there. So there's, those are ones we're going to have to revisit again. And there's others ones we already looked at and added back almost to the full amount. And so that took out another, 12 pages or so. There isn't very many left to look at. I don't expect to see much changes unless we can find out vacancies. And they're kind of reluctant to give us those.
So Representative Weiler, I do have a document dated 11 March or the data is effective on 11th of March. I'll share it with you where they've listed vacancies and Kevin, I don't know the right name for the level that they've given it to me at. There's about 14 or 15 items. What level is that? Is that called a department or what is that?
I'm not sure if those are at the division level. They might have been a little bit, some were at the division level and some look like they were at the bureau level. Doesn't seem entirely consistent.
So I do have some data. It's not line by line by any
All right.
means.
But that'll be a big help.
Representative Nordgren?
Well, I guess I would just say I'm pretty despondent because never before has one party ever spent the weekend coming up with a budget to present to the other party. Representative Weiler knows that. That's not how we've ever done things.
I've been presented before in one division. The chairman did all the work and presented it to us. Said, here we go. So the things are done differently all the time.
Not in Division 3.
Okay, so I guess it's happy hour somewhere. So maybe we should go find it. I think we've talked through this and we're getting ready to adjourn. Is there any last thing before we adjourn for the weekend? And officially we'll see each other again 9:30 on Monday morning.
All right. Thank you.
Bye. Have a good
Representative
weekend.
Rogers. Representative Rogers.